Mike. Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1406 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. And Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. Today, returning to Toronto Mic'd, to educate the masses on the FOTM Lexicon is Cam Gordon and future FOTM Hall of Famer,
Whoa,
Tyler Campbell.
Wow. Sneak preview.
Welcome.
Amazing.
Welcome to Toronto Mic'd. How are you doing? Let's start with you, Cam. You came the furthest to be here. How are you doing?
I'm great. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Can we still say that? Larry David said it was too late.
I think this is like the last day this weekend, and then back to reality next week.
Back to life. Back to reality.
Good jam.
Yeah, well, FOTM jam.
Yeah. By the way, not to get into the Robert Lawson territory, but I want to actually fact check something I said last time I was here. I said I had seen the guy from Soul to Soul at the AGO spinning on a Friday night, and I called him Daddy G. Mm-hmm. That's actually the guy from Massive Attack. It was actually Jazzy B. I saw.
Okay. See, I'm glad you corrected yourself.
I'm a Robert Lawson
I've been getting
myself.
emails.
Yeah. I know.
Well, somebody said on, I had the Zweig brothers over yesterday, Alan and Michael, and there was a lot of discussion about Randy Bachman and Burton Cummings and the whole thing. It's really an interesting episode, actually. But somebody commented that, Robert Lawson's hiding in the bushes outside the studio, and he just leaps out like a leprechaun.
He's like the To Catch a Predator guy.
But I feel like we might. So I'm going to pass the mic. Shout out to the Beastie Boys. I'm going to pass the mic to the VP of Sales. I'm not calling you VP of No Sales. Okay, you've sold.
This could be the year.
I have an opening. Like there's literally
I know.
Maneras was not replaced. I had something brewing and it got delayed. And it's not too late if you want to jump in. Contact me directly, and then I don't have to compensate to the VP of Sales. But Tyler Campbell, you're going to tell us what this special episode is all about. But first, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Happy New Year to both of you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It was a too short holiday season for my taste. This week was a busy one, back at it, but very happy to be here.
It's a weird one when everyone's back at it and the kids are still off school. Like there's a weird week there where it's like, the kids are still home, but you're trying to get back to some kind of business normalcy.
Yes. The kids are all right.
That's not the Guess Who. That's
or the Offspring. Remember, the kids aren't all right.
That's
absolutely. Right. I actually like that song. Like I liked the Offspring quite a bit during the Smash years or whatever, and even the Ixnay on the Ombre I quite liked. But then they did that whole Oobla Dee Oobla Da thing, and
just a
Pretty Fly for a White Guy,
crap.
which
Awful.
I hated.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Like it was terrible.
Yeah.
But then I felt like with that song, I said, okay, there's a little bit of what I liked about the Offspring.
That was on Shattered Dreams, da, da, da. Like that one.
You have a great voice.
You did.
Thanks.
Okay, VP of Sales,
Yes, sir.
Tyler Campbell.
Hi.
Please establish the premise. This is a very different episode. We're going to get cooking. It's not just us talking about the Zweig brothers for 90 minutes. There's a reason for this episode.
That's right.
And we have many names. We were going to call it TMU Lexicon. TMU, that means Toronto Mic'd Universe, by the way. Maybe that's part of this. But TMU Glossary of Terms. Then I thought it should be FOTM Lexicon. Maybe it's FOTM Glossary of Terms. The mic is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, it's a very, I think, important episode because there's a lot of inside baseball that happens on these episodes and the discussion around these episodes. So someone maybe coming into the TMU, the Toronto Mike Universe, for the first time could be a little intimidated by some of the terminology, some of the phrases that get thrown around. So we wanted to kind of break that down for everybody, go back to the beginning, kind of define what these things are. And in some cases, I've pulled clips of the origins of these terms, so we can listen to those. And
how many terms do you have in total? Do you know?
So I have 10 clips, plus I have kind of a handful, maybe another 10 or 15 that are kind of sprinkled throughout.
And Cam is here to react, so I got to be clear though. Cam and I don't know what's coming.
Right.
Like these clips, much like when Al Grego visits, you numbered the clips. I loaded them in. I have not played them. So when you ask for clip number 2 and I play it, I'm hearing it. I don't know. I'm hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And Cam is really cold because he didn't even get the clips. So
Yeah, so this is a bit of Urban Dictionary, a bit of that TV show How It's Made, a bit of audiobook and explainer type thing. Is that what
a little bit of Mythbusters.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so this should be required listening for anyone who's coming to the TMU.
I love it.
Fresh.
Yeah.
I love it. And it might be a refresher for people. It's
Exactly.
been 12 years and over 1,400 episodes. Like, this is a good refresher. Like, so we do Inside Baseball here because I do it intentionally. And then it is like it's a new language and it can be intimidating for a new listener.
Well, it's also, it morphs all the time. I mean, one of the big events last year is sort of one of your favorite expressions, and maybe we'll get to it, but Buffy bailed,
Right?
contextually takes on a whole new meaning.
Absolutely.
Depending on stuff that happens.
Okay,
over the
well,
years.
like without further ado,
Okay.
the straw stirring the drink in this episode 1406 is Tyler Campbell. Like, I'd follow his lead,
Okay.
and then Cam, you and I react.
Okay. So let's dive in. We got a lot to cover. So there are some basic key terms that I wanted to start with. TMU is the first one. The Toronto Mike Universe, not Toronto Metropolitan University, so that's a little confusing.
Right. Screw
fucks
them.
up.
Clear that up.
Yeah,
Can we say
fuck-
that? Fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them. It fucks up your SEO. It's bullshit. But the TMU is the world we live in, centered around the show, around you. It extends out from the show to the not so secret WhatsApp group, to TMLX events, all the FOTMs. We'll talk about those things in a moment as well.
Love it.
TMLX these are the events that you hold usually 2 or 3 times a year. There's usually one in the summer at Great Lakes Brewery. There's usually one in the winter around Christmas at Palma Pasta, and sometimes there's a secret, not so secret park gathering,
Or under a bridge somewhere.
or under a bridge.
Shout
So
out to the
those
Red
are
Hot Chili
actually
Peppers.
under the bridge.
That's right,
Those are
unsanctioned.
unofficial
Yes.
TMLX events. That way that who's our only 100%er? We should point out
It's,
Michael Lang.
fucking Langer.
So Langer does not have to, although he does often attend, but he does not have to attend the.
Do you have something in the oven? Or?
I'm trying to turn my fucking brain.
Baking
I got a new
muffins or something?
Google Pixel,
Oh,
Oh, right.
and on my old phone, I would just was a LG G8 or something. I'd pull down the top and then I'd click. I'd put it on the vibrate, for example, or silence.
It's ironic. Speaking of no sales, you sold all those LG events, and you actually had an LG phone
Actually,
recently.
I rocked the LG phone until they stopped making them. Like they don't make them anymore.
Oh,
that's
wow.
why.
Right.
That's why I had to change to a new phone. I'm gonna get Google
Life's
Pixel.
good.
All right, sorry, Tyler.
that's all right. This is gonna happen throughout the show. FOTM is another very key term. Friend of Toronto Mike.
Yes.
I did a deep dive over the holidays. I was trying desperately to find the origin of that term. I couldn't pinpoint it to a specific episode, but I think it started around the beginning of the pandemic. It showed up in
Recently.
Yeah, it showed up in the comments of
Really?
episode 600, where someone said, "I noticed that you've been talking about FOTM lately. What does that mean?"
Who was the?
I think
guest
I think
for that?
600 was the first Pandemic Friday.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Like
Wow.
I think when you're
God.
doing a Pandemic Friday, which was people who might remember, it was Cam Gordon and some guy named Stu Stone,
Actor,
an
local
actor, director, wrestling manager,
right?
Rock on tour.
What else?
Musician.
Right. He's quite the guy. Yeah, musician. Oh God,
Yeah,
don't forget that.
podcaster.
I have his album right here, Blowing Up with Jamie
you go.
Kennedy here.
Not the
But
chef.
That would be an episode where, if the term existed, we would use it early and often.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So, because we're,
Because I listened to sort of the beginning of a bunch of the first 600 episodes while I was trying to find this, and I couldn't find any mention of FOTM because you would usually say it pretty early in the episode.
okay. So around
600, the first FOTM KOTJ episode, so friend of Toronto Mike Kick Out the Jams episode, where people send in songs that you want to play, I believe.
There's one coming next week.
That's right. So the first one of those was episode 603. So around that time is when that term started being used pretty frequently.
That's interesting. Now, here's a question I actually don't know the answer to. Do you know Tyler Campbell or you, Cam Gordon? Is it friend of Toronto mic'd? 'D, or is it friend of Toronto Mike? I always envisioned it as friend of Toronto Mike.
Interesting.
But I actually don't have an answer here. I'm not sure which one it is.
To me, it's both.
Maybe it's both. It's
because
both.
the guests on your show are friends of Toronto Mic'd.
Right.
The people in the extended TMU in the WhatsApp group are friends of Toronto Mike. So it's both, really.
Mike, I have a question for you. So you've gotten a lot of press yourself. You've been in the Toronto Star. You've been in top trade outlets like Broadcast. You've had dialogue with Connie Thiessen, who's also a contact of mine. Very nice person.
Been
Absolutely.
on CBC.
Have you ever had to
Thank you.
check when people have written about the podcast that they call same deal, the Toronto Mike podcast versus technically it's Toronto Mike.
I mean, often they get it wrong. I mean, remember I was called Podcast Mike.
Right.
And that organization
think
is
is
owned
better,
by Billboard.
Or
Canada.
Toronto Dave, as my dad used to call you.
I'll take that. Okay. Yeah, and sometimes they spell Mike. I notice a lot of people who should know better call it MIC apostrophe D.
No.
I see that
Oh.
quite a bit. I'm like, no, it's never been MIC apostrophe D. That was the whole point. Was it was MIKE apostrophe D. Shout out to FOTM Roz Weston. But Toronto Mike podcast versus Toronto Mic'd the podcast. Like, I don't know. I'm not too worried about it all. Just find it and
It's a
listen.
clever turn of phrase. Fair enough. I love
So
it.
FOTM means both friend of Toronto Mike.
Yeah.
And friend of Toronto Mike. And just to be clear, yes, all guests are FOTMs, and that's often how we use it. But I actually use FOTM, like when I go to a TMLX event.
Exactly.
And somebody's there who's never been on Toronto Mike, but listens and comes to the events. The people in the WhatsApp group we refer to, these are FOTMs as well.
Friends of Toronto Mike.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good.
Well,
I'm
what
glad
about-
we're doing this.
What about when you're lingering around the entrance to the Horseshoe Tavern, just waiting to be feted by random people? Well, what do they normally
Cam,
call
do you
it?
think that's why I'm lingering because I'm there and
Yeah.
we're gonna have a drink of Great Lakes beer before we go inside.
And then
the fact that people line up to meet Toronto Mike is not my.
Well, I was gonna say,
problem.
and then I leave because I have a chest infection and I can't watch Chunk House. So
And
like,
then
I'm
the next week,
motherfucker.
I was sick for 6
I know.
days.
I still feel bad.
And then you and I, week in state, tried to host
We
TMLX
tried. We
14.
plowed through.
Okay, so what we got so far, I've heard. What's TMLX?
Okay,
What's
yes.
TM?
Good start.
What's FOTM? What's
Yeah.
TMU?
And
There's one more. Go ahead.
Sorry. So there's one other just quick distinction on FOTM. There are levels within the
Okay,
group.
I don't even know if
there's-
I know this.
FOTM is sort of your basic, everyone who's in the universe
Like a
is an
garden
FOTM.
variety,
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Then you have a sweetheart.
Oh.
Okay, I love it. Yes, I love this.
So someone who has really gone above and beyond for you, or who
Lauren
you really,
Honickman.
Lauren Honickman, perfect
sweetheart.
example of a sweetheart.
How about a Blair Packham?
Blair
Yeah,
Packham.
Blair Packham,
That guy is a sweetheart.
who used to live with Michael Zweig. I got a
Oh,
text
wow.
from him last night.
Wow.
Yes, that's a good example.
Yeah.
Steve Paikin is a
Steve
sweetheart.
Paikin, total sweetheart.
Apple? Is Apple a sweetheart?
Apple's a sweetheart.
Apple's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is Peter Gross a sweetheart? Yes, right.
For sure.
Totally.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yes, there is that elite level,
Yeah.
and that's different from the FOTM
It is.
Hall of Fame.
It is.
And what privileges come with that level? Is that like
I don't know if you get
10% discount at Mama Pasta?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask you this, Tyler.
Your
Would you
sweetheart
say
card.
the sweetheart, is that equivalent to a term that Mark Hebscher used with me early and often? Mensch?
A mensch. Sure.
Like is a sweetheart like a FOTM mensch?
Yeah, I think mensch could be used in the same context. Those
Okay.
people are sweethearts and mensches.
So this is the goal, to be an FOTM
yeah, you want to be a
sweetheart.
sweetheart
Now,
or a mensch.
Mike, what's the origin of that? Because I think of when I think of a man calling another man sweethearts, I automatically go to Don Cherry, not the
Right,
jazz
yeah.
trumpeter, but the
Father of
Shout out to Nina Cherry and Eagle Eye Cherry.
exactly former Bruins coach Don Cherry.
Okay. Well, Tyler, do you know? Because
I actually don't, and I
think
not
I
take
wanted
the
to
time
take it back. Like, I think I felt there was this negative connotation with being a sweetheart thanks to Don Cherry and others. And I feel a sense of like reclaiming it. Like,
Yeah.
no, sweethearts are good. These are good people.
Yeah.
You want to surround yourself with sweethearts. FOTM sweethearts are even better.
Yeah, there are probably very few FOTMs who are not sweethearts. Certainly there are some.
Is Mark Weisblatt a sweetheart?
Oh yeah, he's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Of course he is.
The cuddly one, Al Greg. Okay, there's a lot
Yeah,
of sweethearts.
there are.
You're right.
There
Okay.
are
Totally.
But then, of course, the upper echelon, and of which there are only 5, is the FOTM Hall of Fame.
Ooh.
Who's in the FOTM Hall of Fame right now?
So we're sitting with one, Cam Gordon.
Wow, congrats, Cam.
Huge. Thank you.
We have Stu Stone, of course, erstwhile host of Toast. We have Mr. Mark Weisblatt, 1236.
Well deserved.
Yeah. Peter Gross, of course.
Absolutely.
Sweetheart. And then Retro Ontario is the fifth.
Ed Conroy.
Ed Conroy.
One concern I have is that we have 5 white guys.
It's a lot of white dudes.
FOTM Hall of Fame, and I am aware of this diversity
There are
issue.
there are some worthy entrants to the Hall of Fame, but I suspect you might be holding back.
There might be about 100 worthy entrants that are all white guys.
Yeah.
And I'm hesitant to make the next FOTM Hall of Famer another white guy.
Yeah, and fair enough.
So I'm working on it. I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah.
It's one of my things. Have we just while we're doing the initials before we get to the clips? TMDS.
Right. Yes, I do have that on my list here.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. And
Hosting the show.
That's okay.
Alan
TMDS.
Zweig tried to take over my show yesterday, and I didn't like it. But
Oh.
when you do it, I like it. So that's because
Well,
you're
you
a
asked me
sweetheart.
to. TMDS is the engine that makes the TMU tick. It's your company, Toronto Mike Digital Services, or Toronto Mike Digital
Toronto
Services?
Mike Digital
Mike.
Services, but
That's
the
a Mike.
name that's actually registered with the Canadian business, whatever, is TMDS.
Okay.
So I happen to know it stands
Is
for
it
Toronto Mike.
registered under your real name, like your birth name, or under Toronto Mike?
I'm the sole proprietor of the
Right.
business named TMDS. So when when Palma Pasta cuts a check,
Right.
the check is to TMDS,
TMDS.
and then it goes into the
Is it-
TMDS
is it a-
business account.
Is it an
Okay.
Inc. Incorporated?
No,
Is it- no,
not yet. Not yet. It's
Okay.
sole proprietorship.
Sole
Now,
proprietorship.
my accountant and I have, this is very inside baseball.
Yeah, it's very
We've had
inside
multiple conversations
See those tax returns.
about whether
Yeah.
it should be incorporated or not. But as we fly today, I am the sole proprietor of TMDS.
Okay, well, that's very good to know.
And Mike, I know I've asked you this, but maybe the listeners would. Have you? Because I thought of this when Zoomer Media bought BlogTO and Daily Hive, and then they bought the Peak newsletter, and that got me thinking: has anybody ever said, "Hey, name your price"?
No.
I wanna
think I
come-
would talk about that on the show. Like,
Yeah,
one thing
I'd
is
be
it's very,
curious.
other than like, I don't know, health things and things that are just simply not fit for public consumption
Sure.
or whatever. Although my health things I talk about. Do you know I popped a pill at 9:30 a.m. when I heard Neil Young on my phone? I popped a blood thinner. Like, I've talked very openly and honestly about that.
Sure.
But I think if I did have somebody come to me and say, name your price, I would talk about it on the show, to be
Sure.
honest.
Yeah.
Sure.
But no one's done that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Moses.
What is my price, by the way, Cam? What should my price be?
I don't know. Like that's it's an interesting question because I mean,
$300, $400?
you
much more
obviously I don't know. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that offline.
Yeah,
That could be a whole other
The phone
episode.
company
just-
may be making a bid later today.
totally. We'll see.
not FOTM. TMDS has obviously the Toronto Mic'd podcast is the flagship show of the TMDS network.
Right, my baby.
Yeah. But then you have other clients as well. You have Humble and Fred. You have On the DL with Dana Levinson. You have Toronto Scoop with our friend Rosie. You have Running Things with Donovan Bailey. It's a wide stable of clients that you have.
And I'm excited to announce next week the return of Mary Jo Eustace.
Oh, yes.
And new episodes coming of Senior
Wow.
Bitches.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Excellent.
Love it. Okay.
So those are sort of my basic sort of starter terms that
Okay.
everyone should know. Do you
It's
think
like
I missed
alphabet
anything
soup.
there?
No, I
Yeah.
think, what did you think? You go ahead, Cam. Sorry. But I think
No, I
that's
was just
a lot of
missing my
alphabet soup.
hat.
Did I miss anything?
A tip of the hat to you.
All right. Well, let's dive into the important phrases.
All right.
So throughout the history of the show, there have been a number of phrases that have become a part of the overall canon. Things that get hashtagged on social media, things that get repeated at TMLX events, referred back to by listeners.
Right.
So I've pulled some clips that tell the origin story of a few of these phrases, which again are essential knowledge of for anyone in the TMU.
Okay. So will you give context before I play,
will,
and then you're going to
yes.
give me the shooter
I
symbol.
will. Okay. So the first one is one that we use pretty frequently, and it's a hashtag SORFH. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. So this is what we say instead of RIP, which is I think what we used to say when a celebrity, for example, would die. Now we say SORFH. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. you say it, you kind of sneak it in anytime on an episode when you talk about someone who's died, and I find the guests don't even notice that you say it.
Some like stonewall it.
I dropped it yesterday. Yeah.
So it's one of my favorites.
Or they're talking about like a loved one.
Well, this is okay. Well, okay.
There's a time and place.
So the first clip we're going to hear
Yeah.
is from episode 973, which is the Festivus episode from December 2021. And right off the top of that episode, you coined this phrase that has really become, I think, part of the heartbeat of the TMU.
Ironically.
Right.
So if you want to play the first clip for us, please.
My sincere condolences. Last time you were in my backyard, I was giving you sincere condolences. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. I was, because your father had passed away and you were very, I know. Is that too cry? It's festival. So your father had, so
Your dad died. Shout out to the funeral home.
So, and again, my sincere condolences. And you were.
Can you really say sincere condolences after you just?
Well, that was. I mean, come on, it's been over a year. Like, you know.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But
I'll listen to that over again.
Wow, I just went there. Okay, so it's his dad, which I'm surprised, but it was a year. I thought a year.
Yeah, so he went on after that to talk about his dog who had just passed away. But you started and looped back to his father.
You should have. I was gonna say you should have played like the Ramones' Pet Cemetery.
I actually couldn't remember when Shout Out to Ridley Funeral Home started. I just know I do use it often. If somebody's talking about somebody who's dead, I'll slip it in. They don't even notice. Like I just slip it in, right? But Midtown Gord reminded me in the aforementioned WhatsApp group for FOTMs. Midtown Gord said he remembered the first instant.
Yeah, and big shout out to Gord because it would have been very hard for me to find it otherwise.
Wow,
that's wild. And I do think
impressive.
When I do drop the shout out to Ridley Funeral Homes. By the way, each of you, Tyler and Cam, I'm sending you home with a Ridley Funeral Home measuring tape.
Very exciting. I've
Very
been
topical.
Looking at these with envy. So
you've got one
excited.
now.
Thank you, Brad.
Lucky
Jones.
son of a gun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home.
Was that Elvis or was that Peter
That was
Gross?
Elvis.
That was
Okay,
Elvis.
it sort of sounded like Peter Gross.
No, I think Peter's dad died a long time ago, actually, sadly.
okay.
But his mom is still well. Cooking for a dozen people.
Wow.
And et cetera. And living independently at 100 years old.
Love it.
I loved Elvis's reaction there. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
it could have gone another way, but you know Elvis well, and I really enjoyed listening to that clip.
What a moment starting TMLX 14 with there were 4 mics open, and I get one. That's how it works at TMLX events. But sitting to my right is the Hall of Famer Cam Gordon, and then beside Cam was Elvis, who drove from North Oshawa for like 20 minutes or maybe less. And Stephen Brunt was on the other mic. I thought that was a great way to start TMLX
That was
14. Cool. So all of us together there. The only way it could have been better is if I had a 5th mic for Tyler Campbell.
Well, I got on with Stephen. I was excited to share the mic.
I
with
like
Stephen.
Brunt's casual look too. I was
His
very like
junk house shirt. He's just a guy. Like that's it. He's beer drinking, football watching, rock and roll
Hamiltonian.
show, go Hamiltonian. He's just a guy who summers in, Newfoundland. He's just a guy.
Murdering fish out in Newfoundland, as the Bobcat would say.
Okay, we're off to a roaring start because you're right. Shout out to Ridley Funeral. In fact, I get worried. Like, what if Ridley Funeral Home doesn't renew their sponsorship? Like, I can't stop that.
They're sponsors for life, regardless whether
if
they
another
pay you
funeral
or not.
home swoops in, I don't know if I can change at this point. So I love it. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Great clip, Tyler.
All right, let's move on to the second one. This one is from one of probably the most infamous episodes of Toronto Mike. This is from 2018, episode 368, Molly Johnson. This is kind of a twofer because this was also the debut of Future Mike.
Oh,
which is when...
Who rarely appears.
He's maybe appeared a handful of times, probably fewer than 5.
Right.
But Future Mike shows up when something has gone awry, whether it's, in this case, with the demeanor of a guest, or
why I sound so scared.
Exactly. Or Carol Pope, I think, had some audio or technical issues, and so you had to sort of cut in to explain what was going on there. But this is sort of the primo example of why Future Mike would show up. You did almost 5.5 minutes of contextualizing before you got into the episode.
Okay, so we're gonna hear that now. I'm almost scared to listen, but
so let's cue it up. The phrase we're listening for here is read the liner notes.
Okay. I'm a massive fan
And of course, we're going to talk all about you and about your festival.
I sound
wanna hear
different.
about that, but
Yeah, you're
just right off the top,
I'm actually, my mouth is dry. I'm
I didn't
scared.
mention the fact
Puckered.
that your brother is in my favorite show of all time. In fact, there's a DVD set in front of you there that's from the Wire. I love The Wire, and your brother was in The Wire.
My brother was not only in The Wire, he created The Wire. He was the first director on The Wire. So, yeah, he did a little bit of acting in The Wire, but the reality
Lawson.
and the real story there is that he actually directed The Wire.
Well, I want the real story here. So obviously we
That's
know
the
him
real
on the
story. There
screen.
it is. There
He's
it is.
Gus,
Well,
season
read
5.
the liner notes that you got apparently right here in this box. Maybe you should read the liner notes. I'm sure his name's in there.
I had it here, smacking it.
So yeah, okay. Well, I just wanted to point out
He's
that
awesome. I've got an awesome big brother. There's no question. He's always doing something interesting, and he's a great guy. And his name is Clark Johnson. If anybody's looking for the names here. And by the way, my name's Molly Johnson. If anybody's wondering.
yeah. So normally I go live to tape, but because of your time constraints, I'm gonna put in the intro post. So
Got it.
you'll get a good thorough introduction for sure.
She fucking hated me. Right? I can hear it now. I can now remove my. It's been many years. I can now. I want to hear Cam's take on this. next.
Was she here by herself, or did she come with
No,
her
by
publicist?
herself. By
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah. No, that was more uncomfortable than I remember.
I love the.
Yeah. I had to admit, I'm actually like, I can't tell you the feeling hearing them back because I haven't listened to it in a long time. Although it gets referenced to me all the freaking time, but I hear in her voice just like disdain, like
Contempt.
My name is Molly Nick, like as if I wasn't going to introduce her or something. And his name is Clark Johnson. I was starting the convo by saying your brother was in The Wire, which I actually loved. I legit loved The Wire. I had the box, of
course.
And she's smacking the box, telling me to read the liner notes. Robert Lawson wants you to know her brother did not create The Wire, but he did direct the first 4 episodes.
Totally.
That's right. And
Which is huge.
Yeah, and he directed the
That's
the
part
finale.
of the convo.
Yeah.
Yes, he directed the finale. We just lost Andre Brower, and I was realizing, of course, Clark was in Homicide: Life on the Streets as well.
He was.
wow.
Yeah.
Which is a great show. Yeah, thanks for playing the Molly Johnson. So check the liner notes.
Yes.
And I want to hear, from you and Cam. I don't want to hog the mic on all these things, but I did receive at a very early TMLX event, Andy Pandy gifted me a T-shirt. I almost wore it now. I should be wearing it right now. That says, I read the liner notes. And the word read can be said 2 ways, right? I always interpret it as I read the liner notes. So I wear this with pride. And she bought me that because of the Molly Johnson episode, which I still think is the most referenced episode of Toronto Mike of the 1406.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say to as an homage to Michael Williams, like, no, read the liner notes. No, it's in the book. And sorry, I feel like I might just be like,
But that's okay. You are
preempting
spoiling,
it.
but that's okay.
No, all good. All
Because
good.
at the very end, we'll do a little bit of a house cleaning if if you and I, Cam, think Tyler missed anything.
By the way, can I just make a comment? Because I think that, and this is almost like a sort of nuanced commentary on the universe. Stuff like this is get re-referenced, or there's sort of constant talk about tears are not enough. I feel like if you're a casual listener, it would almost seem like this, like you're making fun of it or not.
Right.
Like, but if someone's sort of been absorbing this content for years, whether it's The Wire, Tears, like it's coming from a place of like pure joy. And
100%.
that I think like you love talking about this, guests love talking about it.
Yeah.
We love talking about it in group chats. I think it's one of the great things about your content, Mike. I say this with complete sincerity. It's all like good vibes.
Absolutely.
Like it really is. Like
Yeah.
there's just...
Oh yeah, make no mistake. I had Molly over for one reason and one reason only, which is I respect the shit out of her career, and I think she's very talented. And I wanted to talk to Molly Johnson
For sure. And you love The Wire and you love Clark Johnson. Like,
Like
there's
it's
no
like your
disrespect
brother was in The
intended.
Wire.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Like I love that show.
The
and your brother was
Infidels,
in it.
all of
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Kumbaya Festival.
That's
Huge.
why when you hear my voice and I can hear a shallower voice, like it's I'm
You
scared
have no saliva
because of what
left in
happened.
your
That's
mouth.
why
a
future Mike
lump
showed
in
up.
your throat.
Yeah, I don't. I'm like, that guy sounds scared. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's essentially because that's the only time I can think of where a guest was sitting across from me and clearly hated my fucking guts. Like I can hear it in her voice. Like you can hear it. It's drenched with like this tool. I'm sitting in this tool's basement having a conversation, and he didn't name my brother or me, and he's talking about Aretha Franklin on the the day she died.
Shout out to Ridley Funeral.
Shout out to
Yes.
Ridley Funeral.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a big one, and lots of value there. So read the liner notes. Future Mike shows up, and sort of some foreshadowing that there's a fact check that needed to be done on Molly, and if only Robert Lawson had been around in those days.
Right. Shout out to Robert Lawson.
So let's move on. We still got a lot to cover. This next one doesn't need a lot of setup. It's something we talk about a lot. This episode, I listened to a chunk of it in prep for this, and it's such a unique, fun episode, just the way that you interplayed with this guest. So this is from episode 453 from 2019, Gino Vanelli.
I love it.
Well, ask me the question. We'll do Wild Horses.
I was going to actually, because I try to go in chronological order
sun
here.
goes down.
I love it. See, what a different vibe than that last one.
And whistles by like a runaway train. Hey, hey. It's a beautiful thing. It's me.
Such a cool version of it too.
Yeah. So surreal.
It's fucking crazy. Like Gino Vanelli, like playing like Wild Horses. Or sorry, is this?
Wild Horses.
In
Yeah,
the
it's
middle
Wild
of
Horses,
spring. Now, what does she want to know?
I want to know if you, at the time, regarded black cars as any sort of, I joked, said it's don't
Can
call
we
it a comeback.
get off black cars? My God.
It was only half an hour more on black cars before we can move on to another cut from the same album here. But I got more black cars questions. Brother. You know what? You're breaking my heart, Gino. Can we get off black cars? I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night tonight in a cold sweat. Did Gino really
You
say
remind
that?
me of my parish priest. Get off of it, I said.
That's amazing too.
It's classic.
I don't know what to say. Wow. Okay, Cam, do you remember when you first heard the...
Where was I?
Elvis reminds me that we had an emergency episode to just discuss the Gino episode. And sometimes when these big episodes happen, I always wonder, maybe we should have an emergency task force that convenes to record about the recording. But we only did it once for Gino. What do you remember about this, Cam?
What year was this?
That was
again?
2019.
Okay, so I think right away it was clear this was going to be a classic episode. Sometimes you just know when you hear it. Also, I feel like also Gino came up later when we would have conversations. Who's the most objectively famous worldwide?
Well, Mark always says it's Gino.
Yeah. And I think Gino's a candidate.
I think the caveat there is who visited the basement.
Right.
So that excludes a bunch of people, including Randy Bachman and Chuck D, because I went to the CNE band shelter to sit down with Chuck D.
Yeah, who's the most famous person you had in your basement? And Gino's a candidate, absolutely.
For sure.
That's always a great... When you talk globally, absolutely, because as you know, a lot of my basement dwellers, shout out to Basement Dweller, who was on the live stream yesterday when the Zweig brothers were here. There's very Canadian famous people, but Ron James might not be as well known in Germany as Gino Vanelli.
Yeah, I don't think that Canadian guy doesn't have the cultural
and just
resonance.
The brother points out, that laugh you heard in the background when Gino was getting on me about black cars, which is a perfect clip. Oh my God. And actually, when I listen back, I don't have any cringe because it's like, okay, in real time, I reacted okay to that. Like, it's like I took my lumps or whatever.
Well, and they were having fun with you.
they were busting my chops. But Gino's brother, who co-wrote a bunch of Gino Vanelli songs, whose name I might have to Google to get this right. But Gino's brother was there with us. So Gino and Gino's brother, who made sure he sounded good so he could play, and then myself. So 3 of us in this basement.
I remember the beginning of that episode when his brother, I think his brother's name is Ross, was wanting you, they were doing like a sound check, and they were wanting you to fix his levels.
We were deep in the weeds of this board and removing, I'm just going to go do it now without actually, but you have things you can do. And he was... Get rid of this, get rid of that. He wanted a clean vocal, he didn't want any effect at all on it as it came in through the board.
Yeah.
I will say it's interesting to see his reaction where Gino's sort of like, dude, come on, let's
get off black cars already.
So that's his reaction, but obviously having fun with it and having a laugh versus other people you've either had on or want to have on who are like, I'm not going to come on to talk about this thing that happened 25 years ago. I don't want to name names.
Well, I'll name names. Okay, so here I was really into my hour with Bob Wiseman, but it was apparent that Blue Rodeo was not a topic he wanted to discuss.
Right.
But then, you know where I'm coming from all this. It's like, okay, I want to talk to Bob Wiseman, but I can't skip the fact he was a member of one of Canada's biggest bands.
Totally.
Blue Rodeo.
Yeah.
Well, he was on the first 2 albums, I feel like.
Yeah, he was there for the big.
I just know he did the big organ solo on the song Diamond Mine.
100%.
The album
and,
at the same time.
That's him.
And Piranha Pool as well.
Right. Yeah.
So shout out to Bob Wiseman, and I got an hour with him. Good luck finding another hour with Bob Wiseman. I'm just throwing it out there. But just before we move on from that clip number 3, we should talk about how it's used. So basically, I get fixed, because I do, again, I don't know. I'm not diagnosed with anything. I'm not going to say I'm on any spectrum or whatever, but I do get fixated on certain topics. And I have trouble. This happened with Jane Siberry, because it was referenced by Alan Zweig yesterday, who says that's the best interview of Jane Siberry he's ever heard, because we were so different in how we approached it. But I couldn't let it go when she said that wasn't a fun fact. Like, I did let it go, and then I had to come back. Like, I do get kind of fixated on certain things, and I am fixated on Black Cars because it was a big CFTR hit when I was 10 years old. You know what that's like, Tyler. We're the same vintage.
Absolutely.
And you're only a couple years behind us, Cam. And I wanted to talk a lot about Black Cars, and he wanted to move on, and that's when I'll use Can We Get Off Black Cars? It's like, Mike, get off this topic and move on, because you've drained that swamp.
I would say with Jane and the Alexiak no sell, speaking of the VP of no sales, what I interpret, and maybe I'm wrong, is just Jane Siberry has no time for sports.
Right.
Does not care at all
Decorated
about
means
sport.
trees, and yes, I
exactly. She's up in Manitoulin Island.
Yeah,
there's
not part of her world
Yeah,
at
the
all.
foliage up there.
Oh, and the brother reminds me, another example of Can We Get Off Black Cars already, which really bothers me, is when Chris James comes over and he doesn't want to talk about CFTR.
Perfect.
And I'm there to talk to KJ about CFTR, and he's not really biting on that. So that's a good example.
And Mike, I feel like you've had a few Much Music alumni who would fit into this category.
Well, remember, I was warned ahead of time that Erica M didn't want to talk about Much Music, so we didn't do the episode. So we didn't have any awkward moment. And then when she was ready to talk about really nothing but 299
Save
Queen,
the awkward moments for there.
we did it. And the awkward moments, whatever. But I do like Erica M.
Yeah.
And the Catherine McClanahan episode is Catherine's opinion. And
Absolutely.
I like them both. They're both good at
Shout out to
FOTM.
Gaslight Anthem.
Right. Okay.
Excellent. Moving on. So Gino was not a part of something that gets discussed a lot on this episode, probably more than any other podcast in existence, and that is Tears Are Not Enough. So I'm honored to be sitting here with the two people that gave us 2.5 hours on.
Is that why Cam's here?
Well, maybe, yeah. On Tane, as we call it, Tears Are Not Enough.
Tane.
And this is really kind of a key phrase, not only for the Tane conversation, but also for the TMU in general. And this is from another excellent episode 992, Terry David Mulligan from 2022. If you want to play that clip for us, please.
It was magic how the song came together, and then came the day, and all these faces that we all know walk in. Candy's over in the corner. The Second City guys were over in the corner, and what I remember, I don't know if it made the final documentary. Foster, on his last phone call, is bye. Hung it down. And he looked at me and said, "Buffy bailed." And to this day, I carry that phrase. That is my phrase to a couple of my friends. When something goes wrong, I always say Buffy bailed.
I wondered where she was. We were trying to.
I don't know where she. And I've interviewed her like half a dozen times. I've never asked her why she never got there. She could have been living in Hawaii at the time.
She was in Italy.
That's right.
That was the motherland. So it's funny, TD. I'm like, I've interviewed her half a dozen times. I never thought to ask her why she wasn't, why she bailed on Tears Are Not Enough.
He's not
and as you know, literally that would be
That's
my
the
first
only-
question.
I love you're like, Buffy bailed. It all makes sense. This is what
that's
this is
it.
like meaning.
So, in chronologically, this came well after our 2.5 hour deep dive into Tane,
Totally.
Tears Are Not Enough, that Cam and I did. And we did ask about a few people. We talked about like Leonard Cohen, and we talked about Buffy St. Marie. Where was Buffy? And it was wild to get Terry David Mulligan says this story, and you can hear me kind of say quietly in the background, Buffy bailed. Like, it's like that was the birth of a new phrase we've used. But tainted now, right?
Sadly, yes.
yeah, it's a whole new context.
Yeah.
Like now, knowing what we know now, we've dodged glad she bailed, right? Like I feel like it's good that she was not part of Tears Are Not Enough.
Has anyone else in Tane been canceled? Do we know?
No, there was an awkward moment with Bryan Adams in the wet markets.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But we didn't cancel him.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of all the faces
Yeah.
like as we go through.
I should point out, sometimes when we touch is about
Zappacosta's
a
okay?
consensual touch.
Zappacosta's
right?
okay.
So, yeah, Pizza Nova.
4, 3, 9.
Let's tango.
Yeah, she's fine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's okay.
yeah, okay.
Okay, we're good on the Tane front. And yeah, excellent. Buffy bailed. I used it a lot. And then when news emerged that she was Italian-American, I stopped using it. But maybe we should bring it back.
I would like, because TDM said, in his personal life,
Right.
yeah, I'd love to think like, he's interviewed like a lot of big names. I remember, because he was on movie television
Yeah.
and like on Much and stuff.
Big time.
Like, is he just using these? Like last time he interviewed, like David Bowie. It's like, he's just throwing that out and
Yeah.
sort of like, people have like no sense what he's like talking about. But this is like 1992, like.
I like the line from Moose Grumpy in the live chat. So live.torontomike.com is when most of this goes down. By the way, MF is also in the live chat.
Oh, hello,
I just
MF.
want- So MF is there. That's Mrs.
Excellent.
Kim.
Yes.
And I will show. I just renamed it in real time. I saw the name became MF, like it was another name closer to her birth name, and then it became MF, which is wild to me.
There you go.
Leslie is here. I want to say hello to Leslie. I want to say hello to Ian Service, and of course Moose is here. I'm going to get back to that and the brother. But Moose thinks a great term for when like I stopped using Buffy bailed because of the news about Buffy being an Italian American. Tainted. It's tainted.
Tainted.
T-A-N-E.
Perfect.
Tainted.
Love it.
Nailed it.
And the brother wonders if TDM is still using that phrase.
Yeah, you got to get him back and ask.
Yeah. Mike, how do you feel when stuff that's uncovered in your show ends up on Wikipedia and basically becomes part of
love
like
it.
the public record?
I
Like
love it.
there must
That's
be a
the
lot
whole
of
point.
satisfaction.
That's the whole point, right?
Because I have seen, it's not just my friend who does it, Rosie Gray T.O., but I've actually like searched because you can see other references and other people have like referenced your show with
Yeah.
Wikipedia
Well,
page, which I think is like very cool.
When I do, let's say Jason Priestley's coming on or whatever, I do try to like target those areas that we need confirmation from the source. Like TDM says he doesn't ask her why she bailed from Tears Are Not Enough. Maybe it's a polite thing. We're talking about different things. She wants to promote a new album or whatever. Whereas I will make sure that'll be a question no matter what. And even if it's near the end and we're wrapping up, I'm going, one quick last question. Why did you bail from Tears Are Not Enough? Like that, I'm going to ask
Right.
it. And that's the whole point of all this, right?
Did you? I'm trying to remember. Like now we'll cross pollinate a bit. Did you ask Gino why he wasn't there?
Was
He
that
seemed like
pre-
it would be a no-brainer.
I think that was pre.
Was it
Okay, so when we did the
Oh, yeah,
2.5
it's
hour deep dive,
pre-pandemic, I guess. Okay.
well, it was 2019,
Yes.
yeah. So pre-Tane episode, I wasn't as laser focused on the Tane stuff. Now, Rick Emmett comes on and we have a convo about it. Randy Bachman comes on, we have a convo about
like
it.
a default.
Now it's an absolute default. Like I'm not as interested in Juno Stu Stone. Like that one I'm not as interested in. But I'm very interested in these rock stars, Alan Frew, for example. Like he might have come a bit late.
A little
I think.
early.
We'll have to,
He came a little late, right?
What's your tally? Like how many members of the Tane choir? Northern Lights.
Sylvia Tyson was
the
there.
band?
Yeah.
So there, I don't know. I don't have the numbers here, but
I bet you were
Tyler-
like 15, probably. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
Like Gord Depp was there.
And I've been
Dan
promised
Hill,
Corey Hart at some point. So
Yes.
stay tuned. Maybe 2024 is
the
year.
baseball player. Milwaukee
Or Carey
Brewer,
Hart,
great.
right?
That's Carey
Is he a
Hart, right.
surfer or is he a skateboarder?
Wasn't that a goalie for the
Oh yeah, well yeah.
the Flyers or something?
That's
What am I thinking of?
Carter Hart.
Carter Hart.
okay. Because
Okay.
Carey Hart is married to Pink, right?
Oh.
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay.
Yes.
All right, we're cooking with gas. Here.
Excellent. Okay. Let's move on to another key phrase. This isn't a clip, but it's going to lead into a clip. Real talk. So that's what you expect from your guests. That's a great guest brings the real talk. And that's basically people who are telling you their truth. It may not be the exact way things went down, but in their hearts, they're telling you their truth.
Right. No bullshit.
No bullshit. Exactly. And anyone who bullshits is not an ideal guest. And we'll talk about maybe one of those in a few minutes.
Right.
But one of the, I think, seminal real talk moments came from episode 650, which was Brother Bill. And shout out to Brother Bill. I think he maybe got a job recently in
Edmonton.
back in radio, so good for him.
Yeah, we love Brother Bill on the show.
Yeah, would love to hear him back on the show at some point soon. But this clip is it's really quite stunning because I feel like it kind of came out of left field a little bit. But let's listen to Bill talking about Alan Cross.
I want to choose my words correctly because I love Alan like a brother, but some of it is bullshit. And I don't want to get into detail really right now because I don't think this is the place. But Alan is a very, very, very well-researched individual. However, I want to say this, and that is, and I want Alan to be my friend after this too. Yeah, Alan wasn't there. That's about the I'm going to be as honest as possible. When we were going to all the concerts, seeing all the bands, myself, my buddy Shagasaurus, and other people, Alan Cross was rarely there. And I think sometimes that Alan takes a little too much credibility or credit for things that he has researched very well, but shouldn't be putting his name attached to it. It shouldn't be him talking about certain things.
But this sounds a bit to me like Shep playing a mix that he had nothing to do with, and sort of people forever just saying, oh, that's the Chris Shepard mix, or Humble Howard reading the Humble report and then it was a fax subscription thing. Like Alan's sort of the authoritative voice, regardless of whether he's got the cred to make the claim.
And you're right, Mike, and that's the way I should be looking at it, and I guess maybe it's coming from a bit of a jealous side of things, because I'm not going to lie to you, Alan is a way better broadcaster than I was. He always will be. I even got a letter when I left from somebody saying, you know, when I was afternoons, because I took over afternoons at the Edge for Alan, right. And they wrote me a nice long letter, and at the end it said, just enjoy what you had because you'll never be the announcer Alan Cross was.
Wow.
And that's fair. That is fair.
Rude.
I just found sometimes I see Alan doing things on television or through the media or press, and it doesn't, I'm not jealous. Don't, that's not what it is. But I just think, is this the truth? Is this my truth from what I remember? And sometimes it's not. And again, I hope Alan doesn't get upset with what I'm saying now, because you're absolutely right. I don't think it is any different than what Chris Shepard did and what Humble Howard does. And it's just a personal thing that I guess I just take away from that. And I'm just being honest.
Well, brother, I appreciate the real talk. Wow. I'd forgotten exactly how that went down, but I did retain the phrase, he wasn't there.
Yes.
Shagasaurus was there.
I think we lost that detail.
Yeah, that's a real funny little.
I gotta dig that.
Long may he run.
You know, and here's the thing. As I listened to that, I'm like, okay, the difference. And I think Stu pointed this out once when I had Fergie Oliver on. But I played that clip for Alan. So Alan came over and I played that clip to get his response, just like I played Ann Ruskowski's clip for Gord Martineau when he came on. Like, I don't know how to do this show without giving them a chance to respond to something like that. But he wasn't there. I didn't think it was quite fair to Alan because he wasn't there. I don't think he claims to be there. If he had made claims like, I was there when the police played the Horseshoe Tavern, I was one of those 9 people and the Garys brought the police to Toronto, then now we got to talk about like misleading and lying. But Alan Cross does not claim he was there. He's simply the authoritative voice who's collecting the facts and stories to present to the audience.
Do you guys know the song Losing My Edge by LCD Sound System?
Yes.
You know, that's I was there in the great sound clashes in Jamaica. I was there at CBGB's. I saw the first television. It's always sort of reminded me of that. I don't know. I thought that was very interesting because like I think Alan, from what I understand, like I feel like always lived in like Orangeville, and he lived near. I think he lived near like Brampton.
Yeah, Orangeville. I think is where he was.
Yeah, right. I just feel like he had sort of because I think he did some club nights too, but he wasn't sort of on the Martin Street, Brother Bill, who are like all the people, DJ Dingra, you know, that whole crowd, Dwight.
Yeah, DJ Dwight.
Yeah, and Chris Shepard. Like I feel like Alan just had like a different role.
DJ
with the
Bingo
station.
Bob.
But I do know, like I have seen photos of him at concerts. There's in his book, his first book that I think we've referenced, there's a picture of him with Al Jorgensen.
Sure.
Backstage at Lollapalooza. So I think he was there sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad that Brother Bill felt, I felt that Brother Bill was comfortable enough to share that on his Toronto Mike debut. Like, I'm glad he, you know, there's 3 sides to every story. I think that's an Extreme album. 3 sides to every story.
I think you might be right.
I know. Who was just saying, somebody from the produce stand came over and it was a huge Extreme fan. It's like we started talking about Extreme.
Wow.
So go listen
More
to
than
that
words.
produce stand episode. But I digress. But I was glad to hear that Brother Bill was comfortable sharing that. In real time, I did not think it was fair to somebody who is a great, who is a sweetheart FOTM. Some behind the scenes stuff I've never talked about on the program, but Alan Cross is a great friend of the show.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely.
think to Bill's credit, he kind of contextualized it a little bit.
Yeah.
And to Alan's credit, I recall when you had him on and played the clip for him, he wasn't upset with Bill. Like
He agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Orangeville and maybe wasn't out on that Friday night. Downtown, whatever. But now I want to just mop up something happening in the live stream, which is apparently I referred to MF as Mrs. Cam, and MF I don't think likes being called Mrs. Cam.
No.
Now I've been asked that maybe Cam is Mr. MF, and Cam, are you okay with that?
I think more accurate. She's MF, I'm Cam, and we're our own people.
All right. You are a married couple.
We are.
That's where the confusion comes from. But I was at that wedding. Did you know that, Tom?
You were there.
I'm like opposite. I'm not Alan Cross.
That's right.
I was there to witness the nuptials. No controversy, no drama, no drunken uncle
Absolutely.
speeches.
Yeah.
What a boring wedding.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's why I go
Brutal.
to weddings. Somebody's got to fuck up. There were no fuck ups.
You met my dad. I saw you chatting with my dad for a bit.
Your dad,
That
your
was nice.
mom,
Yeah.
your daughter.
Nice. You're part of the family.
Yeah.
Well, there were a lot more MFers. You know what I mean?
There was a few.
Then
There's a few.
with Cam Gordoners in
Absolutely.
the crowd.
Yeah.
That's how the Irish Catholic roll. I know
right.
what it's like. Okay, so great clip, and shout out to Brother Bill for his new gig in Edmonton. I got to get him back on the program.
Yes, indeed. Alan wasn't there. Now, if you don't bring the real talk, you might get the Robert Lawson treatment. So Robert Lawson, who we've referred to a lot lately, I don't have a clip for Robert, but he has become this figure in the TMU.
You should have pulled the one where he says he played with Miles Davis. That's my favorite.
That
'cause
is
I'm
a
like,
great clip.
Played with Miles Davis. Yeah, that didn't happen.
But Robert Lawson now represents sort of fact-checking across any episode.
I've added it to the lexicon.
for sure.
I'm using it often.
For sure.
That's the most recent, I think, ad.
Yeah, agreed. Now, if you want anti-real talk, then there's no better example than former NHL enforcer Nick Kyprios, who was on milestone episode 700 in August of 2020.
I remember because it was booked for in person in the
Right.
backyard.
Yeah.
Pun intended. Booked.
And Nick had a book to plug, and plug it he did. So this clip is not one long clip; it's a bit of a supercut of his book plugs. So let's listen.
Here we go.
Mike,
Yeah.
you can get all of those stories and more in a book that I wrote that will come out in October. Simon & Schuster were kind enough to offer me a book deal. Yeah. And that's in the book too. And, it's well documented in my book coming up. Yeah. And that's in the book too. So it's a good read in my book coming up on how I was able to turn it around. It's a pretty good ride in my book. I think readers will enjoy it. Well, that's another one in my book, buddy. That's another one in my book.
Okay, so I do remember
Wow.
it's in the book, and we do reference it often. And
Absolutely.
I do remember thinking two things. One is this was booked as an in-person, which I far prefer. I don't think I would have booked him in remotely, but literally like a half an hour. I was set up in the backyard, and he's like, "Oh, there was a leaf. There was like a plan with
that's
Columbus
right.
or something
Yeah.
at 2 p.m. or something." He's like,
Okay.
I got to do this remotely. I can't make it in there. And then fine. Like, what was I going to do? I had promoted episode 700 with Nick Kyprios. Like, I had this moment of like, do I cancel this thing or do I do a Zoom with Nick Kyprios? I decided to do the Zoom, and it gave us this wonderful phrase. It's in the book that we use to this day. So thank you, Nick Kyprios. But what a shitty interview. Right? And Joan London, right? What's the most exciting thing to talk to him about?
yeah.
Like, he dated Joan London when he was a Ranger. And I remember when he was basically, that story's in the book. I was like, fuck you, Mr. Kyprios.
Whoa.
I didn't say that. But I mean, it's in the book is the
Get
worst
future
answer
Mike
you
in
get on, and I want to hear what your take on all this, but that's the worst answer you can get when you're trying to have real talk with somebody on Toronto Mic'd.
Wait, he was on that 94 Rangers? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah, he won a cup.
Wow.
Yeah.
You want to come?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's in the book.
I have no. Yeah.
Yeah, what more
what
is there
he
to say?
said. That's what he said.
that is the opposite of real
Yeah.
talk. And you know who wrote that book with him?
Perry Lefko.
Perry Lefko,
That's
FOTM Perry
Whoa.
Lefko. Yeah,
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he's he I think he made me hold up a copy of it for a photo, and then he took the copy away.
What's the deal with Elliot? Like I know he's
They're
in
brothers.
LA, but like he's
So Elliot would he's, for example, he has rated Toronto Mike with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Okay,
Yeah.
I have had many an email from Elliot Lefko saying how much he loves Toronto Mike, and he keeps in touch with the homeland. He lives in LA, and then I got to meet Elliot Lefko. It was at the Subversives documentary premiere, which was the Simon Head documentary about Lois and the Low. And I got to face with Elliot Lefko, and he told me, yeah, I live in LA, and I listen to Toronto Mike, and I love it. And then I realized, okay, this man is not coming on Toronto Mike for whatever reason, but he was in that documentary, which I told Simon pissed me off a little bit, because it's one thing if you just don't do things. Like there's some people who just don't do media or whatever.
right.
But he clearly does stuff. He was in the documentary on Lois and Low, but he just won't do Toronto Mike, even though he adores Toronto Mike and thinks it's a great podcast.
That's his choice.
But
That's
his brother
business.
calls me early and often, and is a different cat, but I quite like Perry Lefko, who introduced me to Mr. McDonald, Norris McDonald, who was at TMLX 11, and then sadly has subsequently passed away.
Shout out to Ridley.
Shout
Funeral
out
Home.
to Ridley Funeral Home. Okay,
Absolutely.
it's going great. By the way, let me do this quickly here.
Yes.
There is a podcast, you two make some good bread. I've seen your homes and your automobiles. You're doing well. You need to learn how to plan and invest with the Raymond James Canada podcast, The Advantaged Investor. It's hosted by Chris Cooksey. He's a good FOTM. I got to get Cooksey on this program, actually. It's good to have them back for January, and I urge you guys to subscribe. Again, it's called The Advantaged Investor Podcast, and it's from Raymond James Canada. Don't you dare miss it.
Actually, I meant to tell you, Mike. Remember, I had the holiday open house. That I think you were going to check it out, but there was a hockey conflict.
Yeah, I had a hockey practice for Jarvis.
Yeah, one of our guests, I was chatting with him, who's also a listener, and he mentioned he's actually a client of Raymond James too. Yeah, and
love to hear it.
Yeah, and has also spoken to Garth Turner too, which is interesting. Which is
There's
huge.
a guy I want on Toronto Mike.
Absolutely.
He's the last man standing, right? From the band.
No. You're thinking of Garth Hudson.
Okay, wait. All right, I can fix
God.
it. I can fix that in post.
Lawson.
No. That's different than a fact check. That's
Okay,
when you hear
that was
it.
good.
You hear it. Well, at least I didn't think it was Garth Ford.
I'm Garth Hudson talking about your money.
I'll fix this in post.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The live streamers pretend you never heard that.
my
Okay,
God.
well let's get reset here.
You're too much, buddy.
Okay.
It's in the liner notes, Cam.
Yeah, it was Garth Turner and Tate.
Why am I always think Garth? When I hear Garth, I filled in the rest without listening. Like this is actually a bad habit I have. Like I just went with Garth Hudson. Like the name, I don't know, Last Man Standing from the band or whatever.
Yeah, I was wondering where
when
you're going with Last Man Standing.
Yeah, like, and then it's Garth Turner, a different human being.
because he's
so my
from
apologies.
Bachman Turner Overdrive.
My shout out to Fred Turner. My apologies to the listenership for my error there.
Totally not touring next year.
No.
Well, time will tell. I can see the Bachman father and son guys going out as BTO. Who owns that name? Probably Randy.
Yeah. By the way, I feel like I said this last, but I do like the Lawson's fact checks were a combination of factually untrue, it sucked, or I don't think that happened.
True, there was a mishmash, right? And maybe my favorite is the they could be drafted into Vietnam War. Which I still quite like, and that came up in yesterday's episode.
You
as well.
never know.
Yeah,
you weren't there, so
I wasn't there.
All right. So the fact that Nick Kiprios was episode 700, I consider that to be a bit of a fun fact. And we have kind of two categories.
That is a fun fact.
Of facts or of things like that. There are fun facts, which are just kind of neat little coincidences or
how
trivia.
things are connected.
Well,
factoids.
Yeah, you know it when you hear it.
Yeah, exactly. Or there's also mind blows,
right?
Which is a whole other category,
right?
The Terry David Mulligan, Buffy bailed thing. That's a mind blow. You know, something that nobody knew or you didn't know that comes to light. That's a mind blow,
right?
I brought a few little fun facts that I just wanted to go over. The milestone episodes of Toronto Mike. So I there are 1,400 episodes. There are 14
Well, there's 13.
Or 13,
'cause you don't
rather.
count 0.
Well, episode 1 is Rosie. Episode 100 was Humble and Fred. Episode 200 was Humble and Fred.
Right.
Episode 300 and 400 were listener episodes.
Right.
Episode 500 was you solo because you wanted McCown.
I offered 500
Yeah.
to Bob McCowan.
Episode 600 was Pandemic Friday #1.
And that was just
Campbell.
chips falling where they
Wow.
may. Like that became a new thing I was going to do. Like
Yeah.
let chips fall where they
Yeah.
may.
Absolutely.
Episode 700 was Nick. Episode 800 was Rod Black.
Ooh.
Episode 900 was Pandemic Friday 74, so the second last Pandemic Friday.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Episode 1000 again was all the listener clips. Almost 6 hours of listener clips.
Yeah, that was quite the ordeal.
And that's
putting that
what
together.
kicked off that article, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
that's where marketing comes in.
There you
Is
go.
you need to sort of bullshit baffles brains, so you got to have these things. Like that's why Jill Deacon called. It's like 1,000 episodes. Like this is like a milestone. Oh my god, like 1,000 episodes.
It's not
Quick,
nothing.
name podcasts that you know have had 1,000 episodes. Like it's probably on one hand you could probably count.
Well, it's not technically you didn't start as a podcast, but they just had it was like the 1,000th episode of ongoing
yeah,
history.
but totally doesn't count.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Same
plus
with-
that was over like 25 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
of
something
a
too,
terrestrial
so-
radio
Yeah.
show. That's
Yeah.
Same with This American Life, right? Like it's
Right.
it was a
Right,
show.
right.
right. See, I mean, podcast only. It's
Yeah.
very rare. I mean,
Yeah.
Mark Maron, I think, has hit it.
Digital first.
Yeah.
Right.
Marin
Maybe,
just hit 1,500. You're going to pass Marin this year, by the way.
Wow.
Looking forward to it. We're gonna make a
Yeah.
lot of noise when I catch Mark Maron. Maybe I'll get Mark Maron as my guest for that.
Yeah,
one.
you should.
What did Ivan Pehar of Spotify Canada say recently? Like about sort of what
he
was
said because I said I was hitting 1,400, and he said it. And again, he's an authority. He said less than 0.01% of podcasts record an episode 1,400.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So I don't know what the real. It's got a bunch of zeros.
Is that a fun fact or a mind
That's
blow?
a fun fact.
That's
That's
a
just
fun
a fun fact.
Yeah.
It's not a mind blown.
That's fun.
Yeah.
No, and again, there's this like sort of like what is pornography? Oh, I know it when I see it, right? Like so when I hear something, I'm like, yeah, that's a fun fact, or that's a mind blow, or it's neither. But I just know it when I hear it.
I feel like mind blows are often so and so are related, or
Right.
they dated, or they're
Yeah.
my neighbor, or whatever. Like
Oh,
Amy
yeah,
Miller.
yeah, like when we found out Canada Kev's sister babysat for Dave Steeb. Is that
That's
a fun
right.
fact or a mind blow? Like maybe that's a fun fact. But that's that you need to have
Amy Mann wrote "Save Me" about Dave Foley.
Yeah, that's a mind blow.
that was a mind blow. It's
Yeah.
like, what?
Absolutely.
Yeah, stuff
Yeah.
that was just like that does not compute.
Yeah.
Right. And quick shout out to YYZ Gord who joined us late, but
Hello, Gord.
he's enjoying the FOTM Lexicon episode.
Just to finish off that list, episode 1100 was Toast. Number 8, Cam and Stu again. So that was Cartoon Jams.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Episode 1200 was Mike Shorman.
Hey, he paddleboarded
paddleboard
the
guy.
5 Great Lakes
Yeah.
with a disability.
Episode 1300 was the aforementioned Bob Wiseman.
Hey, okay. The chips
And
are falling where they may.
Episode 1400, which was just last week, was Mohit Rajans.
Right. It was right. There was it was going to
It
be
was going to be Toast.
it was going to be Toast.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what happened, but
Yeah.
somebody had to change it up and then we swapped. Okay.
That's right.
Excellent.
I think Bob's friend got divorced.
But here's my
What
question
happened.
for 1,500, which is right. Well, that's right. Many of our generation.
Indeed, I think many of us in this room have
divorces.
been.
Actually, everyone in this room, right?
Yes.
Go.
Okay, we should start a
High five.
podcast, the Divorced Dads
Yeah.
Club or whatever.
Double D's.
Yeah.
Double D's. Okay. All right, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But 1,500, I feel like that's an episode where I shouldn't let the chips fall where they may. Any suggestions for what I should do for episode 1,500, which to me is like, it's not quite 1,000 where I did the 6-hour thing, but it is a
It's a
significant
milestone. Well, sorry, when is this?
I don't know.
It'll be
like
later
when I
this
get
year.
there.
Later this year?
If I live long
Yeah.
enough, yeah. Someone's going to cut that out and be like,
Yeah.
he said that and he didn't live to episode 1,500.
By the way, I also tracked the number of episodes it took to get to each 100.
What do you
the-
mean time?
Oh.
No, like the number of the number of days between.
Because it always will be the same.
There's always going to be 100.
I know my math.
Yeah, we'll cut that out in post.
No, because I've decided I'm leaving in the Garth Hudson thing. So we're leaving that in too.
The record for the fastest 100 episodes was between 600 and 700. It was
Really? I wouldn't have guessed that.
138 days.
I wouldn't have guessed
It was
that.
all-
I
it
would
was
have think of it
pandemic
more
time.
recent.
Right.
Okay.
In the pandemic, you were cranking out episodes.
Nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Well, part of it is that I had these two guys that pledged to do an episode a week.
Right. Yes.
And that's why they kept hitting milestones, because the chips were falling. Because we did 76 of those things.
That's right.
Run up
And
the numbers.
over 76 weeks. So
we didn't mention it, just to sort of again tie a bow on the Tane thing, but remember we were going to sing a group rendition of Tears Are Not Enough in what's that little park where we were drinking beer after?
Marie Curtis Park.
Marie Curtis.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna no, the one that was close to the brewery.
Oh,
where we
yeah,
went
it was
after
like
the
Queensway
after
and
party.
Royal Yard.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I think it's called Queensway
Yeah,
Park.
like a teary, like arm in arm rendition.
Why didn't we do that? Like Hands Across
Was that
America?
the Liz night?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
the Liz Brio
We should do that for TMLX 15.
We should.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll if I can do it right. Episode 1500 will drop the day of TMLX 15.
that would be
Do you think I could do it?
Good
Quick,
thought.
on that note of hitting 1400, the brother says, if you consider the total podcast minutes, I'd beat all those guys who have hit 1400.
Probably,
Totally.
I would put my minutes against any of
Except
these
maybe
podcasts.
Rogan. Rogan does a lot of long episodes.
Okay, maybe, I don't know. Rogan,
Yeah.
maybe he beats me. But in Rogan, all those episodes are available as a podcast still?
I think so. I think it's Spotify only, but
my client Mike Hart was on it and we couldn't find it because once he did the Spotify deal, everything got kind of purged.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, Moose Grumpy points out Liz showed up at that
She
park.
did. Very
And
true.
that's
She
where the
was there.
photo was taken. That won you a Pulitzer,
Absolutely.
right, Cam, that photo?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Loving this so much.
All right.
You've earned your Palma Pasta lasagna.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay? So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to be very real about this. Cam's got to go back to East York.
yeah.
Or something, like somewhere.
Or
there. Somewhere, I don't know. Some parts unknown.
Sure.
It's like wrestling talk.
Yeah.
So I have one lasagna in my freezer right now, and that's going to Cam because he's going far away.
No.
No,
Well,
please.
No, Tyler.
No,
well, hold
please.
on. Hear
But
me
we
out. Hear me out.
literally just ate one this week, so we're good for now.
We can saw it
that's
now.
true.
I still have one more in my freezer, so
Oh,
it's all
okay.
good.
All right.
You take it.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank you, Smeyer.
that's what we're
Thank
doing
you.
here. And Cam, I'm sure I'll see you again soon. And I'll
Absolutely.
score you an MF and your lovely daughter. I'll score you guys another Palma Pasta. But thank you to Palma Pasta, who've been on board for many of these years we're discussing. And they're still just freaking delicious. Everybody thanks me for introducing them to Palma Pasta. And they will host us again, either like late November, early December, for a TMLX event at Palma's Kitchen. Those are amazing. I hope everybody can make it. But thank you, Palma Pasta.
I will say the frozen lasagna, it's almost tastes like two different foods. Like when you initially put in the oven, you eat that night, it's great, and then you put in the freezer and it almost congeals.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost a different texture, it's a different
both
flavor
great.
experience.
Yeah.
Both are awesome.
Absolutely.
There's some talk in the chat about maybe episode 1500 being a Pandemic Friday reunion, but that was our plans for TMLX 14. In fact, you can Google it. I wrote a whole post about it on TorontoMike.com that I never edited because the plan was to reunite the Pandemic Friday 3 at TMLX 14. And then Stu Stone said, I'm going to California, and he's gone. So who knows if we can trust that Stu will be around.
Curious if, it would be nice to do that this calendar year with Stu.
Well,
but
let's
we'll
get
see.
Stu back in the city and we'll see what mood he's in. But yeah, let's do it. Okay.
All right.
Pick it up, Tyler.
Okay. Back to clips. This one is this one's great. It's Mike, I think, loves it, as any of us do, when someone comes by to sort of pump his tires.
I got pumped yesterday, actually. While I was being shot down, I got pumped. It was a weird kind of. You have to listen to the Zweig episode.
So who wouldn't love having their tires pumped? And one of the most memorable examples of that gave us a phrase that I think still pops up from time to time.
Yeah.
Let's listen to.
But Mike, you're a big number in Toronto. Like you really are.
Tell me more. And say it slower.
No. That's why it's so cool to be here, because you are the man now. You rule the airwaves, right?
I do love that clip.
It's a good
A
one.
ringtone.
Tell me more and say it slower.
Yeah. And I always I listen, I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, well, that's what I said in the moment. Like lean in. That's just what I said.
And that was just like Mom Guy, right?
Yeah, Paul Burford.
Yeah.
Right. Episode 870 from June of 2021.
And we had talked about Fergie Oliver in that episode, and he had mentioned he had, lost touch with Fergie. Fergie kind of is laying super low,
Right.
and Paul lost touch. And then I was able to, here I am telling more, I'm going to pump my own tires, but I brought them together because Carrie Oliver got her dad, Fergie, to come over. And then via email, I connected Paul with Fergie, and apparently they had a nice long phone call.
Oh, nice.
And I just think that's a nice thing.
That's great.
Had happened.
Fergie, by the way, was one of the top episodes of 2023.
So that I think it was that Paul
Agreed.
Burford episode. There was a good Wikipedia update that came out of that where I think it was him who revealed, like, when they were doing the cook-off, Catherine's swing would sort of go side to side and like prompt them. It's like, okay, you can't just do a big pile of ketchup for like chocolate chip cookies. So people wouldn't like fix it because me and my sister, that was always going to be
exactly.
if we ever went out, we would say big pile of flour. Doesn't matter if it's like pasta primavera or like souffle.
Right.
Big pile of flour, Mom.
Too easy to rig that.
Yeah, and Catherine's no, some more of that. Come on.
Yeah.
And shout out to FOTM Kate Wheeler, who was working on that show, because I told her my idea. The one with all the ketchup, and she said that was every kid's idea.
It wasn't just you.
And shout out to Mark Weisblad, who was on Just Like Mom.
Contestant. Wasn't Bob?
Yeah, Just Like Dad.
Oh, Bob was
right.
just like Dad.
Same thing, but dads instead of moms.
So the catchphrase that I think came out of that is "You're a big number in this town." What he actually said was "You're a big number in Toronto."
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, here I did pull
wow.
it. Here, let me play it again.
But Mike, you're a big number in Toronto. You know, like you really are.
But that's like when you say "play it again, Sam."
Yeah,
like
exactly.
if you go watch
Yeah.
Casablanca, like he never says "play it again, Sam."
Wait, what does he say?
Play it, Sam.
Yeah.
Play it like you used to,
Oh.
whatever.
Yeah.
Something very similar but different. And that does happen where we get these phrases we all use that are just like a slightly different than the actual origin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Okay, so I'm a big number in Toronto.
you are indeed.
I like a big number in this town. It sounds more like folksy.
Exactly. It's more showbiz.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right. Sometimes a guest does all the work for you and gives.
Is this 9, by the way?
We're moving on to 8.
Okay, good.
This is a
Yes.
good list, but great work on this. This
Yeah.
is awesome.
Thank you. This
Yeah.
was
Props to you, Tyler. I really appreciate
it's a labor
this.
of love.
Love it so much. Love having you in the TMU.
I love to be here. So sometimes the guest does all the work and gifts you a catchphrase. And that happened just a few months ago when you had the very elusive but then suddenly very present Michael Williams in the studio, 2 eps in fairly quick succession. And in his first visit, he gave the TMU this gift.
And Cleveland was very instrumental in the career of David Bowie. No Cleveland, no Bowie.
Really?
Absolutely. Bowie, Lou Reed, Mott the Hoople, it all launched out of Cleveland on WNCR and WMMS.
Oh, yeah. I heard it.
No Cleveland, no Bowie.
Yeah.
Like I've got it on the soundboard
Yeah.
just in case it comes up.
So
but
great.
That
love it.
the rumble of that. It
No
feels like he
Bowie.
said that before.
Probably.
No Cleveland, no Bowie.
No
What a
Bowie.
voice, eh?
Bowie.
How do I get a voice like that, Tyler? You got a great voice.
Just a lot of drinking and smoking. Never smoked, but you know.
Okay, you're naturally gifted in
That's
the.
right.
the
I kind
vocal.
of forgot that he also claimed, we wouldn't know about Lou Reed. Like,
Right.
Mott the Hoople is, I think that's Ian
All
Hunter.
the
isn't
young
it? Yeah,
dudes.
it's like,
Well, that was-
right. Yeah.
That's all the young dude. That was a Bowie side thing. No, he wasn't.
I think
in the band,
Bowie
but he
covered
wrote
it
or-
later.
Yeah, Bowie
Oh,
covered
did
it.
he write it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
I with all due respect, the Bowie thing in America is kind of is what it is, but like no Cleveland, no Lou Reed. It's like, come on,
Stretch.
Michael,
It's a stretch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those episodes were incredible, though.
Yeah, they were.
Love them.
They were.
Yeah, and, now it's just like, when do I get Michael Williams back? We
Yeah.
did kind of the back-to-back,
God.
which the most back-to-back up. There were a few examples where this happened, but with Rod Black, it was truly back-to-back.
Back-to-back,
like 2 days in a
800
row.
and 801.
801. And Kevin Hearn had almost back-to-backs. Like, we did an episode on Kevin Hearn, but then I realized we needed a special episode about Gord Downey and The Secret Path, and it was a very different episode, but it was a different conversation. That's why it's a different
Those were great.
episode. And they were almost back-to-back.
Mike, would you say that second episode with Kevin Hearn the most emotional
Wow, that's
episode?
a good question.
Because I feel like you've had some of the stuff people have shared have been like a lot of like heart-wrenching stories
Aaron
and
Davis.
stuff. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Hers might be number one.
Yeah.
David Schultz kicked out the
yeah.
jam for his son.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was a moment. There are a few of these moments. I don't know if I can, which is like number one, but Ken Daniels had a moment where he was
Right.
talking about his boy.
Sure, yeah.
Also an accidental fentanyl overdose in this epidemic we're facing. But without a doubt, Kevin Hearn's second appearance was super emotional. Just us two kind of having a chat, and he talked, his special needs daughter, who I think he's the person who told Hayden about a special needs school in Toronto that
That's right,
Hayden's
yeah.
daughter's in. Like, they're connected that way. And of course, the Lou Reed story, and absolutely Gord Downey. And when Peter, what's it called? the national host, Peter Mansbridge.
Peter Mansbridge,
Peter, what's your last name again? I only know your wife now. Okay, we went to power together. So when Peter Mansbridge speaks with Gord Downey on the national, that's Kevin Hearn's living room.
Right.
Wow. So no Kevin Heard, no Dream Serenade concert.
That is a great use of this.
No Cleveland, no Bowie.
Also, weirdly, I think Kevin Hearn played with Lou Reed. Did he?
That's right. He did.
Wow.
Yeah. He talked a lot about that.
God, it all fits together.
He shepherded. It does all fit together. Back to Lou Reed, but he kind of shepherded his exit almost, like he was there for Lou Reed as he was dying, and that helped prepare him to be there for Gord Downey when he was dying.
Wow.
He's a magic man. Wonderful, wonderful FOTM.
Ships in the night.
There's a sweetheart, Kevin Hearn.
He is indeed.
And he's from the Look People with James B, which is it's all going to
and
come
who's
together.
like son? Was Ian Tyson's son?
That's right.
Ian
Clay Tyson.
and Sylvia.
Yeah, we could keep this going forever.
Clay Tyson is in the Look People.
Yeah.
With
James B. and Kevin Hearn.
Yeah, and Bob Scott.
Great Bob Scott.
Bob Scott.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, this is great. You guys have earned some Great Lakes beers.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
I'll take care of you. You'll bring home some Great Lakes beer, fresh craft beer. We love the partnership with Great Lakes here, and they will host us. I got to lock it in. It's at 99.9%, but it's probably going to be June 27 from 6 to 9 p.m. at Great Lakes Brewery near Royal York and Queensway. Down the street from the Costco. This is where you should collect. Again, it's a free event. It's just FOTM's collecting, and that'll be TMLX 15. And because you listened to this episode, you now know what TMLX stands for, which is Toronto Mic'd Listener Experience. So get your fresh craft beer from Great Lakes. Enjoy responsibly.
What else is happening on June 27th of this year, Mike?
I don't know. My calendar just says TMLX 15. So we'll see what else is going. What month does that event happen for you?
March.
Okay, you'll get there first.
Yes.
So you're marching towards the big 5-0.
5-0.
Wow.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, MF isn't going to get there for another 15 years or something.
No, she'll never get there.
That's terrible.
Sorry.
Shout out to Ridley
I
Funeral
mean,
Home.
she's young at heart.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
Forever Young is if you
Forever Young.
And speaking of
great
birthdays,
songs called Forever Young.
speaking of birthdays, shout out to my daughter Beth, who turns 20 tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, my daughter gets there in July. That's beautiful.
She's
named after the Kiss song.
That's right. And she's actually leaving later this week to go to Edmonton, where she's going to work for 4 months.
Oh, I thought she was going to work with Brother Bill.
I wish, yeah. No, she's on a co-op term.
I know someone from Edmonton.
I know you do.
I can hook them up if she needs some advice.
All right, moving on. So someone who's been on the show more than anyone else, present company excluded, has given us all kinds of memorable moments and phrases over his 90 visits, but none more memorable than a line he spoke as a young child actor in a film that...
Speaking of Peter Mansbridge.
Yeah, and it's a film that I think Cynthia Dale would rather you forget, called Heavenly Bodies.
NSFW.
And I only forgot her husband's last name, that's all.
Cynthia's been on twice, and you've played this clip for her both times, but we can never get enough of it, so let's hear Stu now.
Here, let's all listen to just a little taste of Heavenly Bodies.
What?
Just a little bit.
I'm tired, darling.
Had to be this
Don't you
friggin'
think you've had
scene.
enough?
Well, there's a reason. You'll remember in a minute.
God. Just a bit more. Okay, Mom? Okay. Now let's fetch the guns and things, said Huck. No, Huck, leave them there. They're just the tricks that we have to go to robbing. We'll keep them there all the time and we'll hold our order. Mom, how do you say O-R-G-I-E-S? What? What are you reading?
Tom Sawyer.
Oh.
Now, how do you say that word?
Orgies. Just orgies. Now hurry up and finish that page, okay?
And we'll hold our orgies. Mom, what's an orgies?
There it is. What's an orgies?
What's an orgies?
Wow.
I loved that was from her most recent appearance, and I love her reaction when you start playing the clip.
Oh yeah, I could tell in her eyes. She's sitting right there, and I was like, "Oh, she does not want me to play this clip." But I don't know how to do this.
Wonder why.
It's her first visit, so that's why I revisited the. If it was like to me, if there's a Zoom before a live visit, I sometimes kind of pretend that Zoom never happened. Like it depends on the ordering. So you're coming in now, making your in-person debut, like Stephen Page just did. I kind of like I'll ignore the Zoom we did earlier. And that's why I revisited it with her. And I love the convergence, like the TMU convergence. I'm looking at a copy of Blowing Up, Jamie Kennedy and Stu Stone. That was a gift from Mark Weisblot. And, you know, Stu's there. He's got the boom box on his shoulder. And that same gentleman who Cam knows from high school, they're very good friends, and was a member of the Pandemic Friday trio. It's wild to me that that's his voice. That little kid is him talking to Cynthia Dale from Street Legal, who, of course, went to my high school, Michael Power High School, is married to Peter Mansbridge, has a home in Scotland. And then she's just sitting there. All of a sudden, she's sitting there, Cynthia Dale, and I can play that clip and watch her cringe as she hears that.
It's unbelievable. And sort of a footnote to that, like regardless of that clip, like I know Tom Sawyer is problematic for many other reasons, but like they're talking about like orgy, like what? I've always meant to like look what I'd like to see, because he's looking at a comic book or something in it. Little kids are reading like Tom Sawyer comic books in like the early I guess there were less entertainment options.
Yeah. Well, there were
around then.
Without a doubt. Pre-Game Boy even, right? So what's he can't go just go play Tetris.
This smut that he's looking at.
And you know that director Larry Dane didn't like to take two, like, so everything as much as possible. It was like the first take is what they go with.
Hot off the floor.
Hot off the floor.
I'm sure they had a limited amount of film to work with.
Well, my guest yesterday, who had a name released music as Michael Z, Michael Zweig,
Right,
and in this episode, he talked about how the company that recorded his album sold the masters. So apparently, this tape that they recorded on was $250, whatever that's worth today. Maybe it's like $500 today. But they sold it just as a tape that could be re-recorded on. So they basically sold the masters for like $250.
Oh wow!
Wasn't it like when they talk about archiving a lot of the Much Music stuff, like a lot of the old school Much Music said, it's just they would copy over everything.
I don't like to print the legend, expensive. But a lot of the legend around the 299 Queen Street doc, which I think most people will be able to see for the first time soon. I think it's coming to Crave or something. Maybe it's already there, but. The legend is that Sean Menard had access to the Bell Media vaults, Much Music, and was able to go get these clips. But a lot of the great old clips are absolutely 100% from the private collection of FOTM Hall of Famer Ed Conroy in Richmond, Ontario. Without a doubt, a lot of those old clips are only because Ed was a part of the team and gave them access. It's not the Bell Media library. All that crap's gone. That old stuff is gone. It was Ed Conroy.
Mike, have you ever asked Ed? I'd be curious. It sounds crazy, but like not to get all Ridley Funeral Homes about it, but when he passes, like, is he gonna gift? Because that's gonna be like lost to history. Because it's like like his next of kin might be like, I don't have time for all this stuff.
That'll be my first question next time Ed's on.
Yeah, who gets it? This is like, I think it's like Alan Cross famously when the Brampton, he went and got all the old records.
Yeah, him and Ivor Hamilton have that will rule. Like the first one who dies, the other party gets all their vinyl. That's the deal between Ivor Hamilton and Alan Cross. And I think Alan said, Mary Ellen Benninger is hoping that Alan dies first. That Alan dies first, and then it all goes that way. So we'll see. Okay, we got one more clip left.
One more clip.
Then we'll do a little bit of like maybe anything that the great Tyler Campbell missed. I do want to shout out recyclemyelectronics.ca, because that's where you're going to go if you have any old electronics, old devices, old cables that you need to dispose of. You're going to go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, find a place near you where you can drop it off and have it properly recycled so those chemicals do not end up in our landfill. Take it away, Tyler.
Okay, we referred to this a little bit earlier, and also in sort of the context of fun facts and mind blows. So this is the famous Oleksiak no-cell from Jane Siberry on episode 1314 in this past August.
Do you, Jane, remember who directed the video for Mimi on the Beach?
Yes, it was Dick. I think Dick is some name.
Some guy.
That I can't remember. I'm sorry, but
probably. Well, let me jog your memory just because I was watching it recently. Mm-hmm. And I saw the last name Oleksiak.
Yeah, that sounds.
So Alexiak, and then I did a little Googling because I know an Alexiak. I know a couple of Alexiaks. And one happens to be the most decorated Canadian Olympian of all time. And then another, an NHL player. But it turns out the director of that video is the father of Penny Alexiak, the Olympic swimmer. I'm pausing for applause here.
Wow, she wasn't born when we needed a Mimi.
No.
For the surfboard, that's too bad. But
no, but that's kind of a wild little coincidence, right? It's kind of wild that the person who directed your biggest, well, it's debatable, but your first big single eventually would father the most decorated Olympian in the history of this country. I'm really working it here.
okay, I don't find it that interesting.
No? Okay. I'm so disappointed there.
It's only moderately interesting, but not a huge thing, I wouldn't say.
And yeah, I can only chalk that up to her anti-sports.
No time for sports.
There's a great moment a few minutes after that where she comes back and says, like, why do you care about this stuff? Like, why? Or I think she says, like, why do you think your brain works this way?
Well, this is what Alan Zweig was talking about yesterday.
It's a fair question, to be honest.
When I announced to the universe that Jane Siberry was making her Toronto Mike debut, Alan Zweig, who's very, how do I say this? Unless it's a sports episode, actually. He doesn't like sports either. But he loves Toronto Mike, and he loves to give me criticism or feedback, or maybe it's positive. Usually it's not. But he likes to give me feedback, and I appreciate it. And he shared some of it on yesterday's episode. But he said, going into that episode, he said that we are polar opposites. He says he knows Jane Siberry, he knows Toronto Mike, and that we're polar opposites, and he thought that would be a disaster, us two doing an episode. And for a little while, I thought he might be right, actually.
Yeah.
But then he said it was the best interview he's ever heard with Jane Siberry, and he thinks it's because we're opposites. So, yeah, I'm super jazzed about that. I still think that's a fun fact, okay? Even if you don't appreciate sports.
Totally.
Thank you. I mean,
totally.
I don't even know why we're debating this.
I think that's almost a mind blow. It's just it's like
that's a mind
two
blow.
things have nothing to do with each other all of a sudden.
And that is her, and I was hesitant because I thought she might be insulted if I suggest Mimi on the Beach is her biggest song, and I don't know what the charts will say, but I know when I think back about Jane Siberry, I really do think Mimi on the Beach is the big one. Debatable, as I said, but I think it is.
Yeah.
But so there you go. The director of Mimi on the Beach would go on, and again, we always skip. What's the gentleman hockey? Who's the brother? Alexiak? Do you remember?
Oh, Jamie Alexiak.
Jamie Alexiak, right? And that alone is a fun fact.
Yeah.
But when it's the most decorated Olympian in the history of Canadian Olympics, then it becomes a mind blow.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Moderately interesting is how Jane categorized it.
And I'm glad she brought it back. Though. So yeah, so we put it out there. There's that moment, and I love that moment, and I'm glad you shared it, Tyler. And then later in that episode, like you said, we have to revisit it, and that's sometimes you need to kind of go back to something because it's tough to go forward when that's just hanging there. You know what I mean? Like that's what I do with Molly. Like at some point in the Molly episode, I had to ask her like why she was like so like mean to me.
Yeah, I would say with Molly and Jane, and you hear this with like other interviews with other artists. Like there's some people that are first and foremost artists.
Yes.
And like I think that conveys how they communicate with people. I think sometimes that comes off as like difficult or rude, but I think in this case it's just, artist gonna artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
exactly.
I think that's sort of the vibe. I don't think she's specifically trying to be rude, but just a different outlook in sort of how she passes through this world.
Right.
Yeah.
And YYZ paraphrases what Jane Siberry says as, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I would say Bob Wiseman is in the same boat.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
exactly.
And I did them so close together, and I felt the same vibes from both. One was in person, one was from Manitoulin Island there, but absolutely 100%. It's like, oh, this is an artist, and I got to like vibe with the artist vibe to have a conversation. I can't just...
And again, I feel like often with this sort of guess is where Future Mike needs to be mobilized once in a while.
But Future Mike did not appear in either of those episodes.
He did not.
Shocking.
It's the speaking of that what's wrong with you moment, Terry David Mulligan also at a few moments after the Buffy Bailed thing comes up, Terry David Mulligan says, "Why is this so interesting to you?" Like,
oh, the Buffy Bailed?
Well, just Tane in general.
Right.
Like, why do you care so much about
and many,
this?
Many ask that question every episode of Toronto Mike. And the way I look at it now that we're at 1406 and 12th year, I think, is like you get it or you don't. Like you either get it or you don't, and clearly you two get it, and I really appreciate that. And anyone listening to my voice right now clearly gets it, because you're not going to listen to the TMU Lexicon episode unless you get it. But if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, that's okay. There's like 1.7 million podcasts out there you can fill your ears with. So I'm sort of speaking to those who get it.
I would say the Tane thing is yes, but it's like beyond. And I say that because I'm right there too. Like again, I'm there with my friends.
Well, yeah, you're a big fuel
updating
to
the
that
Wikipedia.
fire,
Totally, totally.
Like I'm always thinking, Rosie Gray T.O. needs to know why what Rick Emmett has to say about the fact he's not. Getty's there. Where's Rick?
Yeah.
No, well, like even just again, we've talked, God, way too many times. Why wasn't Gino Finelli on Tane? But like I'm thinking, oh yeah, we probably should update that Wikipedia page one way or another. Just get that in it, because he seems like a no-brainer that he should have been there, because he was huge at that time.
Right. I mean, we talked about Leonard Cohen. I can't talk to Leonard Cohen, but I can still talk to like a Rick Emmett or Randy Bachman. That's the big. I thought that was important. Randy talked about how Bruce Allen was pissed at him because I guess BTO was with Bruce Allen and left, and he said basically I said it, so it was personal, and Randy says yes.
Well, and I must thank Midtown Gord too, because there was an update for Rick Emmett not being there because he was on tour in Texas at the time, and Midtown Gord gave a gentle nudge like, yes, but was he invited?
Right.
That you then fact checked, and I thought that was a good call out again.
No, absolutely.
Let's not assume, and we don't know. Was Leonard Cohen invited? We actually don't know.
We don't know.
No, and that's why I did try to get Bruce Allen on the program, and I got
no sale.
And he was not interested in talking about the past, KJ style, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I do take these stabs on these people while they're alive, because I am interested in the truth. I don't want to print the legend on Toronto Mike. This is important to me. This is why Ed and I had that friendly discussion about how the truth does matter to me. Where the Bare Naked Ladies made their national television debut. Like maybe I'm the last one.
Sorry, one more comment about Bruce Allen. When did you ask him to be on?
I had on the program. I do these Ridley Funeral Home Memorial episodes every month, and Hal Harbour passed away.
Right,
so on that program, I had Danny Elwell and a woman named Joe Faluna. Joe Faluna was at CFNY and was very close with Hal Harbour when he was at CFNY. So Joe Faluna, as it turns out, is literally like, what's the term for right-hand man that doesn't have gender attached to it? Like
executive assistant kind of thing?
I don't know. I feel like it's...
Chief of staff.
Chief of staff. I like that. Okay. So for the Bruce Allen Enterprise, Joe Faluna is like the chief of staff. I don't even know if chief is appropriate anymore. I got to get my own lexicon figured out here. But the other day I said world's tallest midget with the produce stand guys.
No.
And then I'm like, nope. We're not using that one anymore. That'll be removed in post. Okay. So, and it was never removed in post, of course. But that's another one. I'll fix it in post.
Yes.
Is something I will always say as a tongue in my cheek.
Well, and that's a great...
So Joe Faluna, I put in the request through Joe Faluna. Joe Faluna had a conversation with Bruce Allen and reported back to me in a Zoom, actually, about why Bruce is politely declining.
I just bring this up because you may have seen, I believe he recently had some sort of issue with Bryan Adams, like they had a falling out. So I just wonder if he might be more amenable to coming on in. And quick Lawson, for something I just said, it was actually YYZ Gord that did the fact check on, or the nudge.
He doesn't like Zed.
YYZ Gord. He did the nudge, the Rick Emmett nudge. So
okay, well, we love the contribution. Well, both Gords. I love all the Gords.
If it was about Lee Aaron, it would have been Midtown Gord.
Yeah, and on that note, it's basically because of Midtown Gord for several years now telling me, Mike, you got to talk to Sean Kelly. Mike, you got to talk to Sean Kelly. I think that this is what you should have done when you were a PR person there, Cam Gordon. Eventually, I will succumb and say, okay, I'll talk to Sean Kelly. And I'm sure it's going to be a great episode. But Sean Kelly is booked 100% because Midtown Gord was persistent with his request.
And Sean Kelly was in not Molly Hatchet.
I haven't done my homework yet, but I do know he played with Lee Aaron. I know that Midtown Gord is like the world's biggest Lee Aaron fan.
Gotcha.
Shout out to Karen. FOTM Karen. Okay, gentlemen, that was fantastic. Anything off the top of your head, Cam? I can't think of anything really missed by Tyler. I think Tyler did an amazing job.
I think if we're doing a top 10 list, I think he nailed it.
Thank you.
Those are key, because I feel like these are all things that weren't just like one one-time thing. These are part of the broader lexicon.
I do have a list of other things that I
on the way out.
I didn't sort of dive into too deeply.
I'm ready.
And this is what we call draining the swamp, or what you call draining the swamp.
Right, which is not a phrase I invented on Toronto Mike. I stole it from elsewhere.
So the first one that I did try to find a clip for, but I wasn't able to, was Hansened.
Oh my God, that's actually a very good one.
We Hansened it again.
Yeah, when something like an obvious choice for some subject is missed.
Yeah. Now it came out of Pandemic Friday. There was a Tots and Teens episode where Hansen was not played. There was a Family
Cam named
First.
that episode. I like it.
Still like
the very next episode was Family First, and again no Hansen.
I think Cam named that one too.
Yeah.
And there were, I think, two or three others that they didn't show up on. They eventually showed up on Boy Bands. That's the last song.
I feel like Hansen is the exact opposite of that thing, the Occam's razor. Like
the
most obvious
thing.
is and this is the complete opposite. The most obvious thing, let's just not talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Fuck boot sauce.
Yeah, that's a recent one.
Yeah, I thought that came from Ron Hawkins, right?
Bit more of an edgy one.
So yeah, there was a not back to back, but very close. There was an Art Bergman episode and then a Ron Hawkins episode, and of course, there's the famous story of "Life Imitates Art." The song was written about it, but you know the story. I won't revisit it. But on tour with Boot Sauce was Art Bergman, and they kicked him off the bus, and he has like hitchhiking on the side of the highway in the prairies or something.
Right.
And Lois of the Low are driving one way, and they see there's Art Bergman on the side of the road, and then he writes "Life Imitates Art." Anyway, so Art Bergman said fuck boot sauce, and Ron Hawkins said fuck boot sauce. Maybe Lawrence Nichols even said fuck boot sauce, although I have to go to the record to prove that. And then I kind of got into this, and there's no disrespect to boot sauce, who might be great people.
I'm digging
the fuck boot sauce. I'm digging it. So if I ever get a boot sauce person on the program, I'll own it. I'll be like,
I'm sure they'll be like eager to come on.
Fuck boot sauce.
Fuck off.
Fuck boot sauce.
All right. Tap on the shoulder / exit.
That's a great one.
That's a big one.
Yeah, the Tots.
And we mentioned Kate Wheeler randomly.
That's
when we
right.
were talking,
Yeah. So that's someone who is told that their time is up at a specific employer. It happens
like
a lot
Rod
in
Black.
media. Rod Black.
Black, longtime TSN guy, Bell Media guy, whatever, CTV, Bell Media, whatever it was called. Anyway, he got the tap on the shoulder, and that came from Christine Bentley.
Right. Exactly.
And I think sort of a bolt to that is also your exit interview series of interviews.
Right. Absolutely. Although those aren't always great, like Michael Landsberg, and sometimes they're kind of safe. But if you get somebody just kind of at the right moment, you can get that.
Unlike myself, who got the tots and then didn't appear for like 10 months.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned Brother Bill earlier, and then I was thinking, we had Progressive Past of Modern Melodies, which was Brother Bill, Cam Gordon, and I. And just when all this went down with Cam and he disappeared from on-air TMU participation for a long time, was we were working on that country music episode. We were going to do a Canadian country episode, and I was looking for a Canadian country expert to join us to discuss the history of country music. So this is what we were literally working on this, and then it was like I had to tell Brother Bill, like, the dream is over, Cam's tapping out, but I actually am now going to do this myself. Like, I'm going to record in January 2024 a history of Canadian country music with a subject matter expert. This is going down, and it's all because it was supposed to be a PPMM episode.
Did that happen, and who did you get?
No, it's coming soon.
Oh, yeah, it
hasn't happened yet.
Soon. Okay.
I don't want to spoil it, but I have a good guest, and
that'll be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, very cool.
It's coming soon here. But shout out to PPMM, another initial thing that didn't catch on as well as the other ones.
They were fun episodes, though.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of these
I think also it's an ongoing question, but did that get played on CFNY? It seems to be a through line through certain episodes.
CFNY not?
And stuff. Yeah, CFNY not, exactly.
Right. And it's funny because the reason, and people, it should be obvious, but maybe not. I said to somebody a fun fact. Oh, Sneaky D's was a response to the fact that Honest Ed's was across the street. So there's Honest Ed, and this is Sneaky D, like that. And there's like their mind blew. Yeah, but their mind blew. It was like, oh my god, I never knew that. So to be clear, Progressive Past of Modern Melodies is essentially me taking the words ongoing history of new music and just using synonyms. So instead of ongoing, it's like progressive, and past instead of a history, and then modern instead of new, and then melodies instead of music. Like literally, I took like a thesaurus out and just said
Kirkland variety.
Right.
No, honestly,
Kirkland makes some good shit.
That CFNY not. I might need to go back and listen because I thought that was so fucking interesting.
Yeah, that was
like just hearing we were talking this week
Ivor
about
will
the
come on
Escape
anytime.
Club,
We can do another
yeah.
one because Ivor will come on anytime, and Scott Turner would come on.
So many
anytime.
bands.
That's all
So
you
many
need,
acts.
I think. Ivor, Hamilton, Scott Turner, and we do that episode. We should do that. Or any more on your...
A few more.
those are good ones.
Is James B. famous is a question that comes up a lot. Just in the context.
Although I've cut back lately.
You have, but it remains an important question,
especially if you have on somebody like Sylvia Tyson, because her son was in The Look People with James B.
That's right, and I actually got to meet James a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him if he was aware of
what did
question.
he say?
He said, "Yeah, I'm kind of aware of that."
Okay, he's a good FOTM.
Where did you meet him?
At the West End Phoenix Ontario Place Telethon.
Oh, right.
That was the day John Lawrence was here, and then I told
right.
John, soon you're going to be at the West End Phoenix Telethon or whatever.
With Sarah Harmer with one A.
Exactly. I got to have a nice chat with Sarah Harmer.
Yeah.
I sat down with her at a table because she was the only one there, and I went up and said hello, and she's like, sit down. And so we chatted for like 10 minutes.
She seems cool.
Yeah, she was very cool. I used to work with her brother, so we talked about that for a bit.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
See, that's a fun fact.
And then I pitched her on going on Toronto Mike, and she seemed into it, and then she was like, you talk to my publicist. Yeah.
Well, we should do that though. Like, we should send a note. I don't know who the publicist is, but we should send a note to say, I don't know. You could say that you had a chat with Sarah.
I'll
she
do
was
that.
into it. Can we do it? Because I would like to have Sarah Harmer on, and I would spell her name correctly in the show notes. Sarah has an H.
Ultimate disrespect.
Yeah, for sure. All right, couple more.
James B. famous. What else?
Yeah, turd in his basement. So here we are in the basement.
Although I don't use it too much.
But it's an important thing to be aware of, I think, and that came from Mike Stafford.
I was gonna say, speaking of emotional episodes,
yes,
he's had a few.
He's had quite a few.
Oh my God, yeah. Like that. Even when I remove myself from the fact that that's me unedited in the room, and I kind of try to listen to it like as another person, which is a trick I try to do. It's hard to do, but sometimes I try to listen. Like, I'm just gonna pretend I'm listening to some other guy I've never met or something, and I listen. But that. Like the first one when he came in, and even the second one, I'm talking about his true episodes 3 and 4, which are all after he was let go by Chorus. I think that's as compelling as audio broadcasting gets. Like, it was unbelievable.
No, it was like, I say this not like I'm gonna try to say this gently. Like, it almost sounds like you're listening to like a therapy session, because I do feel like it is.
Yeah, because he's unloading.
Yeah, and for people who spend their lives on microphones or on TV, like, it's very cathartic, and they're used to sharing with the world. So I think there's huge. I think emotional and psychological value. I would imagine. Again, I'm not a mental health professional at all, but I mean, I'll just say it's compelling audio.
It is
when you nail it,
for sure.
Yeah, so and the little, not to go too deep into this, but we were what I think are good friends. We had a good. He came over twice.
Totally.
2 great episodes of Toronto Mike when Mike Stafford was on 640, and we had an email exchange and Twitter and Facebook. Like, we had a good relationship. And then I had Lou Skeezes on for his exit interview.
Lou.
And there's a long story there too. But I said to Lou Skeezes, fun fact, his daughter is an Olympian.
That's right. That is
that's a fun fact. Should have got a bronze.
Penny Alexia.
Because the Russian cheated and then they didn't have the balls to do anything about it. But that's a fun fact. But Lou Skeezes, I asked him one question about Mike Stafford, which was quite simply, this is it. You can go, I never edited that show. I said, have you heard from Mike Stafford since you were let go? And then Lou Skeezes says, no. Then I move on. That's it. So based on Mike Stafford hearing that on that episode, he went the next day on 640. He referred to me as a turd in his basement.
Oof.
And that was it. That was my crime against humanity.
Yeah, huge. He was clearly going through some stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he came back for 3 and 4, and those were what are we talking about? Those heartfelt, things have gone very badly for Mike Stafford.
Well, if we ever do another one of these stuff where your questions were no sold, would be interesting. I think of when you asked Jeannie Becker about
cocaine with
would be one.
I tried. Peter Gross tells a story about doing coke with Jeannie Becker in the back of a limo.
Speak of real talk.
Right.
I feel like there's been a few of those.
I wanted to ask Jeannie about it, but I don't think Jeannie wants to discuss her 1980s cocaine. But everybody in the 80s did coke, right?
Don't blame her at all.
No.
All right. Anything else there, Tyler
a couple
Campbell?
more.
Sure.
So just a quick technical thing. So sounds good in the cans comes up a lot.
I do say that a lot.
That's fun.
Just anytime you're playing a song and you're like, yeah, that sounds good in the cans.
Yeah.
Get on the mic was something you don't hear it as much anymore. But you used to have to instruct people not to drift away from the mics.
Well, now I do more of that before we press record.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of annoying to do it.
Molly was quite offended when you asked her to get on the mic.
Right. Well, she was offended by everything I said. So it's like, but I know now I have a guest, like Alan Zweig was here yesterday, and he doesn't like the mic too close. So he puts it a bit away, and then I boost him here, and I know it's going to pick up like a bit of air sound. You're going to hear a little more, like you're going to get a bit of that because I'm boosting it here. But I don't care as much as I used to. Like, get the guests comfortable and just collect the content.
Yeah. The Rogue Byway was something that came up a lot. Usually it was Wiseblot, I think, who would talk about the Rogue Byway.
Well, he would walk over here once a month, and he would remark on the Rogue Byway, which is for sale and
for sale, closed.
It's done.
And then also Byway related is the Byway bag, hashtag the bag.
Cam Gordon gave me that.
As provided by Cam Gordon.
That was unbelievable. It showed up everywhere, like CTV.
It got some traction.
CA, everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then some questions that come up, you looking for people. So where is Chris Shepard and where is Rumble?
Right.
Right. That's pretty much it. There is one last one that you say at the end of every episode, which I'll let you say at the end. That I think Stu kind of punched up for you.
He punched it up. I had it in the script. Like I have in fact, just to show how the sausage is made here, I have an intro that I read, even though I think I should have that memorized. I just don't bother. Like I just read it. So I read the intro, and then I read the extra, which I have changed quite dramatically lately, but it always included, and that brings us to the end of our 1,406 show. But I would do that on Pandemic Fridays, and Stu Stone, always the wrestling manager, did punch it up absolutely, and he changed the way and that is said. And yeah, now every episode I try to do that homage to FOTM Hall of Famer Stu Stone, who hopefully comes back and we get a reunited Pandemic Friday trio in 2024.
That would be amazing. There was actually one other thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
Was you used to say at the beginning of every episode a podcast about everything and anything and everything.
I should bring that back.
Often with a unique Toronto flavor.
Right.
Okay.
That ended.
Do you know where that comes from?
Early.
Yeah. So that's because that is in the description for TorontoMike.com, and it's been there I think since 2000. No, sorry. Yeah, 2002. So that's a long time ago to think about it. So that's my description for TorontoMike.com. And then when I started the podcast, I kind of took it because I liked it, and I kind of pulled it out of my ass, and I liked it. And I think it got removed because I started going to. I had 6 sponsors, and I figured, there's I'm not going to waste words on that nonsense. But I think I could bring it back. Maybe I'll bring it back.
Maybe you should.
Maybe for episode 1500.
Yeah.
But I do want to thank Cam Gordon for coming back. Cam, you were amazing.
Yeah. Thank you for having me as always.
Thank you for listening.
Had a blast.
I'm sorry I completely ignored you all those years because I quite like you.
That's okay.
I like you. If you didn't
like
listen,
you too.
Sort of like Elvis doesn't listen, and I kind of got tired of the whole shtick about Elvis not listening, and that's why he's only invited on once a year now. But with Cam Gordon, he does listen.
Absolutely.
But if you stopped listening, I would still want to hang with you. I like you very much.
Okay.
You know who I like also very much is Tyler Campbell.
Absolutely.
Closer geographically, but I don't know. I have a bike, we'll travel. I don't mind going to see Cam where he lives. But Tyler, what an important role you played, not just with Hodge100.com and what you do, and Dave Hodge comes on every year.
Love it.
That's amazing. But archiving stuff, there's a spreadsheet I can go to see everybody's jams. Steve Ryan wrote me a note this morning to ask if he can come over and kick out the jams tomorrow.
Hard boiled.
And I had to write back to Hard Boiled Steve Ryan and tell him it doesn't quite work that way. I can't just kick out the jams with you tomorrow. But I pitched a date in February.
He really needs to kick out the jams.
It's emergency jam kicking.
It's I need a little heads up here usually. But you maintain the official spreadsheet of jam, not only kicking out jams and FOTM, KOTJs. We have one coming next week, but also Pandemic Fridays and Toast. There's a Toast coming up. There's a Liza Fromer jam kicking coming up with her.
Oh my God,
her crush.
I'm so excited.
Is driving from New York to be here. Rob Pruce.
Can't wait.
It's going to be unbelievable. That's in the books right now. But this is a long-winded way of saying, Tyler, I love how you are such an important member of the TMU and how you help this show, and I couldn't do it without you. And I want to thank you very much for this and everything you do for Toronto Mike.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. It's just a labor of love, and thank you for everything you do.
So don't die.
I'll try not to. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home.
And that's what I do for Stu Stone. And that brings us to the end of our 1,406th show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike. You can find Cam on Twitter, Cam_Gordon. Doesn't do as much there. And you can find Tyler there too. What are you?
Tyler A. Campbell.
Yeah, and you can find these people.
I don't tweet.
Just find us in the not-so-secret WhatsApp group and then talk to us there. Yeah. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. That's Palma Pasta. That's Recycle My Electronics. That's Raymond James Canada. And, of course, that's Ridley Funeral Home.
Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. See you all next week.
Wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine, and it's just like mine, and it won't go away. 'Cause everything is rosy and gray. Well, I've kissed you in France, and I've kissed you in Spain. And I've kissed you in places I better not name.